Map territory distinction. Map territory distinction is one of the most unsettling concepts because it reveals that most people are not reacting to reality itself, but to the picture of reality inside their mind. The map is your belief, memory, opinion, fear, assumption, trauma, culture, or explanation. The territory is what is actually happening beyond the story you have attached to it. This concept becomes powerful because two people can experience the same moment and live in completely different worlds. One person hears silence and feels abandoned. Another hears silence and feels peace. One person sees rejection. Another sees protection. One person sees failure. Another sees feedback. The event may be the same, but the internal map changes the entire emotional meaning. The disturbing part is that people often defend their map more than they examine the territory. They protect what they believe because their identity, pride, pain, and past experiences are tied to it. This is why simple disagreements can become intense. People are not only debating facts, they are defending the world their mind has built. A painful childhood can create a map where distance feels like betrayal. Past humiliation can create a map where correction feels like attack. Repeated disappointment can create a map where hope feels unsafe. The person thinks they are seeing clearly, but they may only be seeing the present through an old emotional wound. This concept changes how you understand people, conflict, fear, and even yourself. Before reacting, you begin to ask, am I seeing what is real, or am I seeing what my mind has learned to expect? That question alone can break illusions. Identity protection. Identity protection is one of the most hidden forces behind human behavior because people often defend who they think they are more than they defend what is true. The identity is the inner story a person carries about themselves. I am smart. I am good. I am strong. I am the victim. I am always right. I am not like them. Once a belief becomes part of identity, questioning it can feel like a personal attack. This is why people can reject clear evidence, deny obvious mistakes, or become angry when corrected. They are not only protecting an opinion, they are protecting the version of themselves that opinion supports. If someone believes they are always fair, admitting they hurt someone feels threatening. If someone believes they are wise, accepting that they were fooled feels humiliating. If someone believes they are strong, admitting fear can feel like weakness. The unsettling part is that identity protection can make people blind without them realizing it. They may twist facts, blame others, rewrite memories, or surround themselves with people who confirm their self-image. The mind would rather protect comfort than face a truth that requires change. This concept explains why growth is painful. To grow, a person must sometimes let an old identity die. They must admit, I was wrong, I was afraid, I was attached, or I became the thing I judged. Most people avoid this because losing an identity feels like losing the ground beneath them. Once you understand identity protection, you stop taking every reaction at face value. Sometimes resistance is not about truth. Sometimes it is a frightened self-image fighting to survive. Selective attention. Selective attention is one of the quietest forces shaping human reality because it decides what your mind notices, ignores, magnifies, and remembers. At every moment, the world is giving you more information than your brain can process. Sounds, faces, risks, opportunities, patterns, emotions, colors, words, and movements are all competing for your awareness. Selective attention is the mental filter that chooses what becomes important. This is why two people can walk into the same room and leave with completely different stories. One notices who smiled. Another notices who looked away. One sees opportunity. Another sees danger. One hears encouragement. Another only hears criticism. The room did not change. Their attention did. The unsettling part is that your attention is not always neutral. It is trained by fear, desire, pain, habit, insecurity, culture, and past experiences. If you have been rejected before, your mind may search for signs of rejection everywhere. If you feel unsafe, you may notice threats before kindness. If you believe you are unlucky, your brain may collect evidence that confirms it while ignoring moments that prove otherwise. This concept becomes powerful because what you repeatedly notice starts to feel like the whole truth. A person focused on disrespect will find disrespect. A person focused on lack will keep seeing lack. A person focused on possibility will begin spotting doors others walk past without recognizing them. Selective attention does not just shape what you see, it shapes who you become. Your life can quietly shrink or expand depending on what your mind keeps feeding you daily. Before you trust every feeling, ask what your attention has been trained to look for. Perception. Filtering. Perception filtering is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that people do not simply see the world. They see what their mind allows through. Every person carries invisible filters shaped by childhood, culture, fear, pain, beliefs, expectations, social class, education, trauma, desire, and repeated experiences. These filters decide what feels true, what feels threatening, what feels possible, and what gets ignored completely. This is why one person can see criticism as guidance while another feels attacked. One person can see a quiet room as peaceful while another feels rejected. One person can see someone's success as inspiration while another sees it as proof of their own failure. The outside event may be simple, but the filter gives it emotional meaning. The unsettling part is that most people mistake their filter for reality. They say, "This is how life is," when they may only be describing how life looks through their conditioning. A person raised around chaos may filter calmness as suspicious. A person used to betrayal may filter kindness as a hidden agenda. A person who was constantly judged may filter neutral faces as disapproval. Perception filtering becomes dangerous when it quietly controls decisions. People reject opportunities because their filter calls them risky. They sabotage relationships because their filter expects abandonment. They stay small because their filter makes growth feel unsafe. Once you understand this, you stop trusting every first impression blindly. You begin to ask, is this truly happening, or is my mind coloring it with old evidence? That question can expose fear, soften judgment, and reveal a world your previous filter never allowed you to see. System self-preservation. System self-preservation is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows that every system, no matter how noble it appears, has an instinct to protect itself first. A family, company, government, school, religion, friendship group, online community, or culture may claim to exist for truth, fairness, service, or progress. But once a system becomes established, it often begins defending its structure before defending the people inside it. This is why harmful patterns can survive for years. A family may protect its image instead of protecting the wounded person. A workplace may silence the honest employee instead of correcting the toxic leader. A community may reject uncomfortable truth because truth threatens the comfort of the group. The system does not always ask, "What is right?" It often asks, "What will keep us stable?" The unsettling part is that systems rarely admit this openly. They use beautiful language to hide self-protection. They call silence peace. They call obedience respect. They call questioning disloyalty. They call exposure drama. In reality, they are often protecting power, reputation, tradition, money, control, or familiar order. This concept changes how you see conflict. Sometimes the person who speaks up is not the problem. They are the alarm. Sometimes the person being punished is not dangerous. They are revealing what the system does not want examined. Once you understand system self-preservation, you stop being confused when truth gets attacked. You realize that many systems do not fear lies. They fear the person who can expose the lie and survive without needing the system's approval. Attention economy. Attention economy is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that your attention is not just a personal resource. It is something people, platforms, brands, politicians, influencers, and systems are constantly competing to capture. In the modern world, attention is money, power, influence, and control. Whoever can hold your focus long enough can shape what you buy, fear, desire, believe, and chase. This is why everything feels louder now. Notifications, headlines, short videos, scandals, trends, arguments, and emotional content are designed to interrupt your mind and pull you away from yourself. The goal is not always to inform you. Sometimes the goal is simply to keep you watching, reacting, scrolling, comparing, and returning. The unsettling part is that your attention can be stolen so quietly that you do not realize your life is being redirected. You open your phone for 1 minute and lose an hour. You read one angry post and carry that mood into your day. You watch someone else's life so often that your own begins to feel smaller. Your focus becomes rented out to people who do not know you, love you, or care what happens to your peace. Attention economy becomes dangerous because what controls your attention slowly controls your identity. If your mind keeps feeding on fear, you become anxious. If it feeds on comparison, you become dissatisfied. If it feeds on outrage, you become emotionally exhausted. Once you understand attention economy, you begin guarding your focus like a sacred possession. You stop asking only, "What am I watching?" and start asking, "What is this training me to become?" Familiar prison effect. Familiar prison effect is one of the most unsettling concepts because it shows that people can become attached to the very things that keep them trapped. A familiar prison is not always a physical place. It can be a toxic relationship, a limiting belief, a painful identity, a family pattern, a job that drains you, or a life that feels safe only because you have known it for so long. This concept becomes powerful because the human mind often prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar freedom. Freedom sounds beautiful, but it also demands courage, uncertainty, responsibility, and a new version of yourself. The old prison may hurt, but at least the mind understands its rules. It knows how to survive there. It knows what to expect. It knows how to shrink without being surprised. The disturbing part is that people often defend their prison. They say, "This is just how I am. At least I know what to expect. It could be worse." Or, "I am not ready." These words may sound reasonable, but sometimes they are fear speaking in the language of practicality. A person can stay with someone who breaks them because loneliness feels scarier than mistreatment. They can remain poor in confidence because visibility feels dangerous. They can keep repeating old habits because change would force them to face the unknown. Once you understand the familiar prison effect, you begin to see that not everything comfortable is safe. Some comfort is just captivity you have learned to decorate. The real question becomes, am I staying because this is good for me or because this pain has become predictable? Borrowed beliefs. Borrowed beliefs are one of the most dangerous concepts because they reveal that many people are living inside ideas they never personally examined. A borrowed belief is any opinion, fear, value, judgment, dream, prejudice, or life rule you inherited from parents, culture, school, religion, friends, social media, pain, or society without stopping to ask if it is actually true for you. This becomes powerful because borrowed beliefs can feel like your own voice. You may think, I am not capable. When that belief came from someone who constantly doubted you, you may think, people like me cannot succeed. When that idea came from your environment, you may think, I must suffer to be accepted. When that lesson came from watching people reward your silence more than your honesty. The disturbing part is that borrowed beliefs can control an entire life quietly. They decide what you attempt, who you trust, how much you charge, how you love, what you tolerate, and how far you allow yourself to rise. A person may reject a dream, not because the dream is impossible, but because someone else's fear has been living inside them for years. Borrowed beliefs are hard to notice because they often come from people we trusted. A parent's warning can become a life sentence. A teacher's insult can become an identity. A culture's expectation can become a cage. Once you understand borrowed beliefs, you begin questioning the voice inside your head. You ask, is this truly mine? Or was it handed to me? That question can separate your real self from the programming you mistook for truth. Illusion of consensus. Illusion of consensus is one of the most deceptive concepts because it makes people believe their view is more widely shared than it truly is. It is the mind's tendency to assume that most reasonable people think, feel, choose, judge, or believe the same way we do. Because our own thoughts feel obvious from the inside, we start treating them as common sense instead of personal perspective. This becomes powerful because it quietly shapes confidence. A person may say, everyone knows that, when only their circle believes it. They may say, nobody would tolerate that, when many people actually would. They may say, that is normal, when it is only normal inside their family, culture, workplace, religion, or online group. The mind mistakes familiar agreement for universal truth. The disturbing part is that the illusion of consensus can make people cruel without realizing it. When someone believes their view is obvious, anyone who disagrees looks stupid, dangerous, weak, immoral, or difficult. Instead of becoming curious, they become judgmental. They stop asking, why does this person see it differently? And start thinking, what is wrong with them? This concept explains why social groups become echo chambers. People surround themselves with voices that confirm them, then confuse that repetition with reality. Over time, they lose the ability to understand anyone outside their bubble. Once you understand the illusion of consensus, you become slower to judge and harder to manipulate. You realize that agreement does not always mean truth, and disagreement does not always mean ignorance. Sometimes the world is bigger than the room you keep listening to. Repetition. Bias. Repetition bias is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals how easily the human mind can mistake familiarity for truth. When people hear the same idea, story, warning, insult, opinion, or belief again and again, it begins to feel more believable even if it was never proven. The brain does not always ask, is this accurate? Sometimes it only feels, I have heard this before, so it must mean something. This becomes powerful because repetition can shape reality without needing evidence. A child repeatedly called lazy may grow up believing effort is not part of who they are. A person repeatedly told they are difficult may start shrinking their voice to avoid being rejected. A society repeatedly exposed to the same fear may begin accepting control as protection. The message becomes familiar, and familiarity begins to feel like fact. The disturbing part is that repetition bias can be used to program people quietly. Advertisers repeat slogans until products feel trustworthy. Politicians repeat narratives until suspicion feels like certainty. Manipulators repeat accusations until victims begin doubting their own memory. Even your own mind can repeat one painful thought so often that it starts sounding like wisdom. This concept explains why people can believe things deeply without ever investigating them. They may not be loyal to truth. They may only be loyal to what has been repeated around them the longest. Once you understand repetition bias, you become careful about what you allow into your mind repeatedly. You stop asking only, "Is this familiar?" and start asking, "Is this actually true, or has it only been repeated until I surrendered?" Urgency trap. Urgency trap is one of the most dangerous concepts because it shows how easily people can be controlled when they feel they must act immediately. Urgency is the emotional pressure that tells the mind, "Decide now, respond now, buy now, explain now, choose now, fix it now." Once urgency takes over, calm thinking becomes harder and fear begins to lead the decision. This becomes powerful because not everything that feels urgent is truly important. A message can feel urgent because it triggers anxiety. A demand can feel urgent because someone is pressuring you. A problem can feel urgent because your nervous system remembers past danger. But real importance is not measured by how loud something feels in the moment. The disturbing part is that urgency is often used as a weapon. Manipulators rush you so you do not have time to think. Salespeople create limited offers so fear of missing out controls your choice. Toxic people create emotional emergencies so their needs always come before your peace. Even your own mind can trap you by turning every worry into a crisis. Urgency trap makes people abandon wisdom. They apologize when they need boundaries. They agree when they need time. They react when they need silence. They choose quickly because slowing down feels unsafe. Once you understand urgency trap, you begin to notice the difference between true responsibility and emotional pressure. You stop treating every loud moment like a command. You learn to pause before surrendering your peace. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, "I need time to think," because urgency loses control when calmness returns. Normalization. Normalization is one of the most disturbing concepts because it reveals how people can slowly accept things that would have shocked them in the beginning. Normalization happens when repeated exposure makes something feel ordinary, even if it is harmful, unfair, unhealthy, or deeply wrong. The mind adjusts to what it keeps experiencing, and after enough time, the unacceptable begins to feel like just life. This becomes powerful because people rarely adapt all at once. They adapt slowly. The first insult hurts. The 10th one feels expected. The first lie alarms you. The repeated lies make you question whether honesty is too much to ask for. The first time you are ignored, you feel pain. After years of being dismissed, you may begin to treat emotional neglect as normal. The disturbing part is that normalization can make people stop fighting for better. A toxic home can become normal. Constant stress can become normal. Being overworked, underpaid, disrespected, silenced, or emotionally starved can become normal. People may even defend the very conditions that are damaging them because their mind has adapted to survive inside them. Normalization is also how societies accept things they should question. When people see corruption, cruelty, dishonesty, or injustice often enough, they may stop feeling shocked. They say, "That is how things are," and that sentence becomes the graveyard of change. Once you understand normalization, you begin asking harder questions. Did this become acceptable because it is right, or because I got used to it? That question can wake up the part of you that still remembers you were meant for more than survival. Familiarity bias. Familiarity bias is one of the most quietly controlling concepts because it reveals how people often choose what feels known over what is actually good for them. The mind is naturally drawn to what it recognizes. Familiar people, familiar pain, familiar habits, familiar places, familiar beliefs, and familiar routines can feel safer simply because the brain has seen them before. This becomes powerful because familiar does not always mean healthy. A person may keep returning to a relationship that drains them because the emotional pattern feels known. They may stay in a job that crushes their confidence because uncertainty feels more frightening than exhaustion. They may repeat old mistakes, not because they want pain, but because the mind trusts what it can predict. The disturbing part is that familiarity bias can disguise captivity as comfort. You may call something home because you have known it for years, even if it keeps shrinking you. You may call a belief truth because you heard it growing up, even if it was only fear passed down through generations. You may call a toxic pattern normal because your nervous system learned how to survive inside it. Familiarity bias also affects how people judge new opportunities. A better life can feel suspicious at first because it does not match the old map. Peace can feel boring after chaos. Respect can feel unfamiliar after mistreatment. Growth can feel unsafe after years of hiding. Once you understand familiarity bias, you begin questioning your attachments. You ask, do I want this because it is right for me or because my mind already knows the pain? That question can reveal the difference between comfort and freedom. Emotional leverage. Emotional leverage is one of the most powerful concepts because it shows how people can influence behavior by touching the feelings that control a person most. Emotional leverage happens when someone understands what you fear, desire, regret, miss, crave, or feel guilty about, then uses that feeling to move you in a certain direction. This becomes powerful because people rarely make decisions from logic alone. A person who fears abandonment may agree to things they do not want just to avoid losing someone. A person who craves approval may work harder for people who barely value them. A person who feels guilty may keep giving, apologizing, and explaining long after they have done enough. The disturbing part is that emotional leverage can look like love, concern, friendship, or loyalty. Someone may say, after everything I did for you, not because they want understanding, but because they want control. They may withdraw affection so you chase them. They may bring up your past mistakes whenever you set boundaries. They may use your kindness as a handle, pulling you back every time you try to leave. Emotional leverage also works in society. Brands sell belonging. Politicians sell fear. Influencers sell insecurity. Families sometimes sell duty. The message is rarely direct. It whispers, you will lose something important if you do not obey. Once you understand emotional leverage, you become harder to control. You begin asking, is this decision coming from truth or from fear, guilt, loneliness, or the need to be chosen? That question can separate real love from pressure, real responsibility from manipulation, and real choice from emotional captivity. Invisible conditioning. Invisible conditioning is one of the most unsettling concepts because it reveals that many of your reactions may not be truly chosen by you. Conditioning is the quiet training of the mind through repeated experiences, rewards, punishment, fear, approval, shame, culture, family, school, religion, media, and pain. It becomes invisible when you no longer notice it controlling you. This becomes powerful because people often mistake conditioning for personality. A person may say, I am just quiet, when they were taught that speaking up creates punishment. They may say, I do not need anyone, when they learned early that needing people leads to disappointment. They may say, I am not confident, when years of criticism trained their body to expect humiliation before they even try. The disturbing part is that invisible conditioning can make a person obey limits that no one is currently enforcing. The parent may no longer be there, but their voice still controls the mind. The bully may be gone, but the shame still decides how visible you allow yourself to become. The old environment may be behind you, but its rules may still be living inside your nervous system. Invisible conditioning also shapes what feels possible. If you were praised only when useful, rest may feel selfish. If love came with fear, peace may feel unfamiliar. If mistakes were punished, growth may feel dangerous. Once you understand invisible conditioning, you stop judging yourself only by your reactions. You begin asking, was this response freely chosen, or was I trained into it? That question can expose hidden programming and return power to the part of you that was never truly broken, only taught to survive. Interpretive reality. Interpretive reality is one of the most mind-shifting concepts because it reveals that you are not only living inside events, you are living inside the meaning your mind gives to those events. Reality happens, but interpretation decides whether it feels like rejection, opportunity, danger, disrespect, failure, love, punishment, or growth. The event may be neutral, but the meaning attached to it can change your entire emotional world. This becomes powerful because people rarely suffer from facts alone. They suffer from the story built around the facts. A person does not only think, they did not reply. They think, they do not care. They do not only think, I failed once. They think, I am not good enough. They do not only think, they criticized me. They think, they are trying to embarrass me. The disturbing part is that interpretations can feel exactly like truth. Once the mind gives meaning to something, the body reacts as if that meaning is real. Fear rises, anger grows, shame appears. The person may believe they are responding to reality, when they are actually responding to the meaning their past, pain, or insecurity attached to it. Interpretive reality explains why healing changes perception. When your inner world changes, the same situation can feel different. Silence may no longer feel like abandonment. Correction may no longer feel like attack. Delay may no longer feel like rejection. You begin to see that your mind has been translating life through old emotional language. Once you understand interpretive reality, you start questioning meaning before obeying emotion. You ask, what else could this mean? That question can loosen fear, interrupt assumptions, and reveal possibilities your first interpretation tried to hide. Emotional programming. Emotional programming is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that many people do not react from the present moment. They react from emotional patterns installed long before the moment happened. Emotional programming is the way repeated experiences train your body and mind to respond automatically to certain situations, people, tones, silences, failures, or forms of love. This becomes powerful because a person may think they are choosing freely when they are actually obeying an old emotional script. If love was inconsistent, closeness may trigger fear. If mistakes were punished, feedback may feel like humiliation. If your feelings were ignored, silence may feel like proof that you do not matter. The present situation may be small, but the emotional program makes it feel dangerous. The disturbing part is that emotional programming can control your life without asking permission. It can make you push away people who care, chase people who hurt you, apologize when you did nothing wrong, or freeze when you need to speak. You may call it instinct, personality, or overthinking, but sometimes it is simply your nervous system repeating what it learned in survival. This concept explains why logic does not always fix emotional reactions. You can know someone is safe and still feel afraid. You can know you are capable and still feel unworthy. The mind may understand, but the body remembers. Once you understand emotional programming, you stop judging every reaction as weakness. You begin asking, is this feeling about what is happening now or what I was trained to expect? That question can expose old patterns and help you respond from awareness instead of emotional memory. Suffering identity. Suffering identity is one of the most painful concepts because it reveals how people can become attached to the very pain they say they want to escape. A suffering identity forms when a person's wounds, struggles, disappointments, betrayals, or failures become the main way they understand themselves. Pain stops being something they experienced and becomes who they believe they are. This becomes powerful because suffering can give people a strange sense of familiarity, meaning, and protection. If someone has been hurt for years, peace may feel unfamiliar. If they have always been disappointed, hope may feel dangerous. If they have always been overlooked, being seen may feel uncomfortable. The mind begins to treat suffering as home because it knows how to survive there. The disturbing part is that suffering identity can make people unconsciously protect their pain. They may reject help, doubt kindness, sabotage opportunities, or return to situations that confirm the old story, not because they want to suffer, but because healing would require them to meet a version of themselves they do not yet recognize. A person may say, "This is just my life. Nothing good lasts for me," or "I always end up hurt." These statements may sound like honesty, but sometimes they are emotional chains disguised as truth. The wound has become a name, a role, and a worldview. Once you understand suffering identity, you begin asking, am I healing, or am I protecting the story that pain gave me? That question can be uncomfortable because it reveals that freedom is not only about leaving pain behind. It is also about becoming brave enough to exist without letting suffering explain who you are. Perception advantage. Perception advantage is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that the person who sees clearly often moves faster, chooses better, and stays calmer than everyone else. Perception advantage is the ability to notice what others miss: hidden motives, changing patterns, emotional signals, weak opportunities, quiet warnings, and the real meaning behind what people say or avoid saying. This becomes powerful because success is not always about having more strength, money, talent, or intelligence. Sometimes it is about seeing the situation more accurately before others do. One person sees rejection and quits. Another sees a test of direction. One person sees criticism and breaks down. Another sees information. One person sees conflict and reacts emotionally. Another sees the fear, insecurity, or power struggle underneath it. The unsettling part is that people with poor perception can be controlled by surfaces. They believe confidence means competence. They mistake attention for love. They confuse noise with importance. They trust words while ignoring patterns. They follow crowds because popularity feels like proof. Meanwhile, the person with perception advantage studies behavior, timing, incentives, silence, repetition, and consequences. Perception advantage also protects you from manipulation. You begin to notice when someone is flattering you to gain access, rushing you to weaken your judgment, or playing victim to avoid accountability. You stop being carried away by first impressions and start reading the deeper structure of situations. Once you understand perception advantage, you realize that seeing differently is a form of power. The world does not only reward those who work hard, it rewards those who can recognize what is truly happening while others are still reacting to what only appears to be happening. Ego defense. Ego defense is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows how hard the mind works to protect a person from feeling wrong, exposed, weak, ashamed, or inferior. The ego is not just pride. It is the inner structure that protects your self-image. When that image feels threatened, the mind often reacts before truth has a chance to speak. This becomes powerful because ego defense can make intelligent people behave irrationally. A person may deny a mistake not because the mistake is invisible, but because admitting it feels humiliating. They may attack the person correcting them because correction feels like disrespect. They may twist the story, blame others, change the subject, or act offended, not because they are innocent, but because their ego is trying to escape discomfort. The disturbing part is that ego defense often disguises itself as confidence, strength, or self-respect. Someone may say, "I do not care," when they are deeply affected. They may say, "You are too sensitive," when they do not want to face the harm they caused. They may say, "That never happened," because the truth would force them to see themselves differently. Ego defense is dangerous because it blocks growth. A person cannot learn from a truth they are busy fighting. They cannot repair what they refuse to admit. They cannot become wiser while protecting the illusion that they were never wrong. Once you understand ego defense, you stop being fooled by loud reactions. You begin to see that some anger is not power. Sometimes it is fear wearing armor, trying desperately to protect a fragile self-image from the truth. Scarcity control. Scarcity control is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals how easily people can be influenced when they believe something is limited, disappearing, or difficult to replace. Scarcity makes the mind anxious. It tells a person, "Act now, hold on, accept less, chase harder, or you may lose your chance." Once scarcity enters the mind, calm judgment becomes weaker. This becomes powerful because people do not only respond to what something is worth, they respond to what they fear losing. A relationship can feel more valuable when someone starts pulling away. An offer can feel irresistible when it says limited time. A person can tolerate disrespect when they believe love is rare. A worker can accept poor treatment when they believe better opportunities are impossible. The disturbing part is that scarcity can be created, exaggerated, or used as a tool of control. Manipulators make affection inconsistent, so you chase small moments of warmth. Brands create urgency, so you buy before thinking. Leaders use fear of danger, poverty, rejection, or exclusion to make people easier to guide. Even families can use scarcity by making approval feel rare, forcing you to earn what should have been freely given. Scarcity control works because it narrows vision. Instead of asking, "Is this good for me?" the mind asks, "What if I never get this again?" That fear can make people cling to things that are already hurting them. Once you understand scarcity control, you begin to slow down around pressure. You ask, "Do I truly want this, or am I afraid of losing access?" That question can break the spell and return your power. Framing effect. Framing effect is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that people do not only respond to information, they respond to how that information is presented. The same truth can feel hopeful, frightening, acceptable, offensive, urgent, or harmless depending on the frame around it. A frame is the angle, wording, context, comparison, or emotional meaning placed around an idea. This becomes powerful because a small change in presentation can completely change perception. Saying 90% survival rate feels different from saying 10% death rate, even though both describe the same reality. Saying investment feels different from saying expense. Saying discipline feels different from saying restriction. The facts may remain the same, but the emotional reaction changes because the frame changes. The disturbing part is that framing can quietly guide people without them noticing. Politicians frame policies to sound protective or dangerous. Brands frame products as symbols of status, beauty, freedom, or belonging. Manipulators frame boundaries as cruelty, questions as disrespect, and independence as betrayal. Once the frame is accepted, the conversation is already controlled. Framing effect also shapes personal life. If you frame failure as proof that you are not enough, you shrink. If you frame it as feedback, you learn. If you frame someone's silence as rejection, you suffer. If you frame it as uncertainty, you stay calmer. Once you understand framing effect, you become more careful with the meanings placed around events. You begin asking, who created this frame, and what do they gain if I accept it? That question can reveal hidden influence and help you see the same reality with a freer mind. Environmental design. Environmental design is one of the most overlooked concepts because it reveals that your environment is constantly shaping you, even when you think you are choosing freely. Environmental design is the hidden arrangement of spaces, people, habits, tools, rules, sounds, temptations, and routines that quietly push your behavior in a certain direction. This becomes powerful because willpower is weaker than surroundings. A person who wants peace but lives around constant conflict will struggle to stay calm. A person who wants discipline but keeps distractions nearby will keep losing focus. A person who wants confidence but stays around people who mock growth will begin shrinking without noticing. The environment keeps whispering instructions until the mind starts obeying. The disturbing part is that many people blame themselves for weakness when their environment is built against the person they are trying to become. They say, "I lack discipline," when everything around them rewards laziness. They say, "I am too negative," while living around fear, gossip, and complaint. They say, "I cannot change," while staying inside the same place that trained the old version of them. Environmental design also explains why some people transform quickly when their surroundings change. A new room, cleaner routine, better friends, quieter phone, healthier workspace, or more respectful circle can awaken a version of someone that looked impossible before. Sometimes the person was not broken. The setting was starving their better self. Once you understand environmental design, you stop trusting motivation alone. You begin asking, does my environment support the life I claim to want, or does it keep feeding the life I say I am tired of? That question can expose why some habits keep returning. Boundary resistance. Boundary resistance is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows how people react when they can no longer access you the way they used to. A boundary is not an attack. It is a clear line that protects your time, energy, peace, body, values, or emotional safety. But to someone who benefited from your lack of limits, a boundary can feel like disrespect. This becomes powerful because people often reveal their true relationship with you the moment you say no. Someone who respects you may feel disappointed, but they adjust. Someone who depended on your silence, guilt, fear, or overgiving may become angry, offended, cold, dramatic, or manipulative. They are not always hurt by the boundary itself. They are hurt by the loss of control. The disturbing part is that boundary resistance can disguise itself as love, loyalty, concern, or tradition. Someone may say, "You have changed," when they really mean, "You are harder to use now." They may say, "You are selfish," when they really mean, "You are no longer sacrificing yourself for my comfort." They may accuse you of being difficult because your peace now has rules. Boundary resistance also exposes unhealthy systems. Families, friendships, workplaces, and relationships that survive on your compliance will often punish your clarity. They may test the boundary, mock it, ignore it, or guilt you into removing it. Once you understand boundary resistance, you stop seeing every negative reaction as proof that you did something wrong. Sometimes resistance is confirmation that the boundary was necessary. The people who were comfortable with your exhaustion will not always celebrate your self-respect. Relief seeking. Relief seeking is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows that many people are not truly chasing happiness, success, love, or freedom. They are chasing relief from the pressure inside them. Relief is the sudden emotional release that comes when fear reduces, guilt quiets, loneliness softens, anxiety drops, or pain feels temporarily controlled. This becomes powerful because relief can disguise itself as a good decision. A person may return to someone who hurts them, not because the relationship is healthy, but because the silence was painful, and reconnection brings relief. They may apologize when they did nothing wrong, not because they are guilty, but because tension feels unbearable. They may buy things, scroll endlessly, eat emotionally, overwork, or seek attention because each action gives the mind a short break from discomfort. The disturbing part is that relief can keep people trapped in cycles they mistake for healing. The thing that calms you for one moment may be the same thing that weakens you over time. Going back may relieve loneliness, but deepen dependence. Avoiding a hard conversation may relieve fear, but strengthen resentment. Distracting yourself may relieve anxiety, but delay the truth your mind keeps asking you to face. Relief-seeking also makes people easy to control. Anyone who knows what pain you are trying to escape can offer temporary comfort and gain access to your choices. This is why inconsistent affection, false promises, and emotional highs can become addictive. Once you understand relief-seeking, you begin asking, is this giving me peace or only a break from discomfort? That question can expose the difference between real healing and temporary escape. Familiarity disguise. Familiarity disguise is one of the most deceptive concepts because it shows how the mind can dress old patterns in beautiful names. Something may feel like love, loyalty, destiny, peace, comfort, tradition, or home, when in reality it is only familiar. The danger is that the brain often trusts what it recognizes, even when what it recognizes is quietly hurting you. This becomes powerful because familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar healing. A person may call a toxic relationship deep connection because the emotional highs and lows remind them of what love once looked like. They may call overgiving kindness because they were praised for abandoning themselves. They may call constant struggle strength because peace feels too unknown to trust. The disturbing part is that familiarity can hide captivity. You may stay where you are not respected because disrespect has been part of your story for so long. You may chase unavailable people because their distance feels like the emotional weather you grew up surviving. You may reject calm people because calmness feels empty when your nervous system is used to chaos. Familiarity disguise makes people defend what is damaging them. They say, "This is just how things are. I know them," or "I am used to it," without realizing that being used to pain does not make it safe. It only means the mind has adapted. Once you understand familiarity disguise, you begin questioning what feels comfortable. You ask, do I love this because it is truly good for me or because it feels like something I already know? That question can uncover patterns hiding behind emotional attachment. Approval dependence. Approval dependence is one of the most controlling concepts because it reveals how easily a person can lose themselves when they need others to validate their worth. Approval dependence happens when someone's peace, confidence, choices, identity, or self-respect becomes tied to how other people react to them. Instead of asking, "Is this true for me?" they begin asking, "Will they like me for this?" This becomes powerful because approval feels like safety. A person who fears rejection may become overly agreeable. They may laugh when they are uncomfortable, stay silent when they disagree, say yes when they are exhausted, or become whoever the room rewards. Slowly, they stop living from conviction and start performing for acceptance. The disturbing part is that approval dependence makes people easy to control. Whoever controls your need to be liked can influence your behavior. They can reward you with attention when you obey and punish you with distance when you choose yourself. A compliment becomes a leash. Silence becomes a threat. Disapproval becomes a weapon. Approval dependence also creates deep inner confusion. You may no longer know what you want because you have spent years studying what keeps people pleased. You may mistake being accepted for being loved. You may mistake being useful for being valued. You may even betray your own truth just to avoid the pain of someone being disappointed in you. Once you understand approval dependence, you begin asking, am I choosing this from self-respect or from fear of losing approval? That question can expose where your freedom has been traded for acceptance. The moment you stop needing everyone to approve of you, you become much harder to own. Silence awareness. Silence awareness is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that silence is never truly empty. Silence carries information. It exposes tension, discomfort, avoidance, peace, power, fear, distance, honesty, and emotional truth. Most people fear silence because noise allows them to escape what they do not want to feel, admit, or confront. This becomes powerful because silence often reveals what words try to hide. In a conversation, silence can show hesitation. In a relationship, silence can reveal emotional distance. In a room, silence can expose power. In your own mind, silence can reveal the thoughts you keep covering with distraction. When everything becomes quiet, the truth has fewer places to hide. The disturbing part is that many people use noise to avoid awareness. They scroll, talk, argue, explain, joke, work, or stay busy because stillness feels uncomfortable. Silence begins to feel dangerous when the mind is full of unresolved pain. A person may say they are bored, but sometimes they are only afraid of meeting themselves without distraction. Silence awareness also helps you read people more deeply. Someone who avoids silence may be hiding discomfort. Someone who weaponizes silence may be trying to punish or control. Someone who can sit calmly in silence often carries a different kind of inner strength. They do not need constant noise to feel real. Once you understand silence awareness, you stop rushing to fill every quiet moment. You begin asking, what is this silence showing me? That question can reveal hidden feelings, unspoken truths, emotional distance, peace, or patterns that words were covering. Silence does not always mean nothing. Sometimes it is the loudest truth in the room. Nervous system priming. Nervous system priming is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows that your body often prepares for reality before your mind fully understands it. Priming happens when past experiences train your nervous system to expect certain outcomes. Before a conversation, decision, relationship, opportunity, or conflict even unfolds, your body may already be preparing for rejection, danger, shame, abandonment, failure, or disappointment. This becomes powerful because many reactions are not purely logical. A person may hear a calm correction and feel attacked because their body remembers being criticized harshly. They may receive kindness and feel suspicious because their nervous system learned that warmth often came before pain. They may enter a peaceful room and still feel tense because their body has been trained to scan for hidden threats. The disturbing part is that nervous system priming can make the present feel guilty for what the past did. Someone new may be honest, but your body expects betrayal. A good opportunity may be real, but your body expects humiliation. A safe relationship may appear, but your body does not know how to relax inside safety yet. This concept explains why healing is not just about thinking differently. You can tell yourself, I am safe, while your body still acts like danger is near. The nervous system needs repeated evidence, not just words, before it learns a new response. Once you understand nervous system priming, you stop judging every reaction as truth. You begin asking, is my body responding to this moment or preparing for an old one? That question can slow fear down and help you separate present reality from past survival training. Safety-seeking mind. Safety-seeking mind is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that the brain does not always choose what is best for you. It often chooses what feels safest. The mind is built to protect you from pain, rejection, danger, uncertainty, shame, and loss. Because of this, it may push you toward comfort, even when growth is calling you forward. This becomes powerful because many life choices are secretly safety choices. A person may avoid speaking up, not because they have nothing to say, but because silence feels safer than judgment. They may stay in a small life, not because they lack dreams, but because visibility feels dangerous. They may reject love, opportunity, success, or change because the unknown feels less predictable than the pain they already understand. The unsettling part is that the safety-seeking mind can disguise fear as wisdom. It may say, "Be realistic," when it means, "Do not risk disappointment." It may say, "Wait for the perfect time," when it means, "Stay where nothing can expose you." It may say, "You are not ready," when it means, "This new version of you feels unfamiliar." Safety-seeking can also keep people attached to unhealthy patterns. The mind may prefer a known problem over an unknown possibility because survival values predictability more than happiness. This is why people can cling to situations they complain about daily. Once you understand the safety-seeking mind, you begin questioning your hesitation. You ask, "Is this protecting my peace or protecting my fear?" That question can reveal whether your mind is guiding you toward wisdom or quietly keeping you loyal to limitation. Status bias. Status bias is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows how easily people confuse position with truth, wealth with wisdom, popularity with value, and confidence with competence. Status bias happens when the mind gives more trust, attention, respect, or importance to someone simply because they appear powerful, successful, attractive, famous, educated, rich, or socially approved. This becomes powerful because status can change how people hear the same words. If an unknown person gives advice, people may ignore it. If a successful person says the same thing, they call it genius. If an ordinary person makes a mistake, people judge them harshly. If a high-status person makes the same mistake, people explain it away, defend it, or call it strategy. The unsettling part is that status bias can make people surrender their judgment. They may trust someone because of a title instead of character. They may follow someone because of followers instead of wisdom. They may believe someone because of confidence instead of evidence. The mind sees the symbol and forgets to examine the substance. Status bias also shapes relationships. People may treat the wealthy more gently, the popular more patiently, and the powerful more respectfully, while dismissing quiet people who may carry deeper truth. This is how valuable voices get ignored and dangerous voices get protected. Once you understand status bias, you become harder to impress and harder to mislead. You begin asking, "Am I respecting truth or am I bowing to image?" That question can expose where your mind has been trained to worship appearance over reality, and it can help you see people beyond the costume of status. Outcome bias. Outcome bias is one of the most deceptive concepts because it reveals how quickly people judge a decision by its result instead of by the quality of thinking behind it. If something ends well, people assume the decision was smart. If something ends badly, they assume the decision was foolish. But life is more complicated than that. A good decision can have a bad outcome, and a bad decision can accidentally succeed. This becomes powerful because people often rewrite reality after seeing the result. Someone takes a reckless risk and wins, so people call them brave. Someone makes a careful choice and still loses, so people call them foolish. A business succeeds by luck, and everyone studies it like genius. A relationship fails despite honest effort, and people act as if the warning signs were obvious from the beginning. The disturbing part is that outcome bias can punish wisdom and reward recklessness. It teaches people to worship results without examining process. It makes failure feel like proof of stupidity, even when the person made the best choice with the information they had. It makes success feel like proof of superiority, even when timing, privilege, chance, or hidden support played a major role. Outcome bias also affects self-judgment. You may blame yourself for things you could not fully control. You may say, "I should have known," when you only know now because the ending exposed what the beginning did not show. Once you understand outcome bias, you become fairer with yourself and others. You begin asking, was the thinking sound before the result arrived? That question protects you from worshiping luck, condemning honest failure, and confusing endings with evidence of wisdom. Crowd certainty. Crowd certainty is one of the most dangerous concepts because it reveals how a large group can feel completely right while still being deeply wrong. When many people believe the same thing, repeat the same opinion, laugh at the same target, fear the same enemy, or follow the same direction, the mind begins to treat agreement as evidence. The crowd feels like safety, so doubt begins to feel like danger. This becomes powerful because humans are social beings. We are wired to seek belonging, approval, and protection inside groups. When the crowd speaks with confidence, many people stop asking whether the crowd is wise. They only ask whether they will be rejected for disagreeing. Truth becomes less important than remaining accepted. The unsettling part is that crowd certainty can silence independent thought. A person may notice something is wrong, but stay quiet because everyone else seems convinced. They may laugh at something they do not find funny. They may support something they privately question. They may repeat an opinion they never examined because disagreement feels too costly. Crowd certainty has shaped families, cultures, movements, workplaces, markets, and entire societies. It can make harmful behavior look normal, foolish ideas look intelligent, and cruel actions look justified. Once enough people agree loudly, even lies can feel protected by numbers. Once you understand crowd certainty, you become more careful around popular belief. You begin asking, do I believe this because it is true or because many people believe it loudly? That question can separate courage from conformity. Sometimes seeing clearly means standing alone long enough for the crowd to realize it was only confident, not correct. Sacred belief effect. Sacred belief effect is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals how certain beliefs become almost impossible to question once people attach identity, emotion, culture, loyalty, fear, or morality to them. A sacred belief is not always religious. It can be a family rule, political opinion, relationship expectation, personal story, social tradition, or painful assumption that a person treats as untouchable. This becomes powerful because sacred beliefs do not feel like ordinary ideas. They feel like truth, safety, belonging, and self-protection. When someone questions them, the person may not hear curiosity. They may hear disrespect, betrayal, attack, or danger. The belief has become so emotionally protected that questioning it feels like questioning the person's entire world. The disturbing part is that sacred beliefs can survive without evidence. A person may defend a family pattern that damaged them because it is called tradition. They may defend a harmful relationship rule because it is called loyalty. They may defend limiting ideas about themselves because they have repeated them for years. Once a belief becomes sacred, the mind protects it from examination. Sacred belief effect can make people aggressive toward truth. They may reject facts, mock outsiders, silence questions, or punish anyone who sees differently. Not because the belief is always strong, but because it may be too fragile to survive honest inspection. Once you understand sacred belief effect, you become careful around ideas people protect too fiercely. You begin asking, is this belief sacred because it is true or because questioning it would force someone to change. That question can expose where certainty is hiding fear and where loyalty has replaced honest thinking. Tolerance patterning. Tolerance patterning is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows how the things you repeatedly accept begin to shape the way people treat you. Tolerance is not always agreement, but to others, repeated tolerance can look like permission. When you keep allowing disrespect, neglect, pressure, inconsistency, or emotional laziness, people may slowly begin to believe that this is the standard you are willing to live with. This becomes powerful because mistreatment rarely starts at its worst. It often begins with small tests, a small lie, a delayed apology, a careless joke, a broken promise, a repeated excuse. If there is no consequence, the pattern grows. What you tolerate once may be seen as kindness. What you tolerate repeatedly may become expectation. The disturbing part is that tolerance patterning can make people participate in their own shrinking without noticing. You may tell yourself you are being patient, understanding, mature, or forgiving when you are actually teaching someone that your discomfort has no cost. Your silence becomes training. Your over-explaining becomes access. Your repeated forgiveness becomes a system they learn how to use. Tolerance patterning also affects how you see yourself. The more you accept less than you need, the easier it becomes to believe that less is all you deserve. The pattern outside starts becoming a belief inside. Once you understand tolerance patterning, you begin asking, what am I teaching people by what I keep allowing? That question can be uncomfortable because it removes the illusion that endurance is always strength. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stop making your pain easy for others to repeat. Compound choices. Compound choices is one of the most life-changing concepts because it reveals that your future is rarely built by one dramatic decision. It is usually built by small choices repeated quietly over time. A thought you keep feeding, a habit you keep excusing, a boundary you keep delaying, a skill you keep practicing, or a weakness you keep protecting can slowly become the shape of your life. This becomes powerful because small choices do not always feel important in the moment. Skipping one day feels harmless. Staying silent once feels easier. Saying yes when you mean no feels like peace. Reading one page, saving one amount, taking one honest step, or walking away one time may feel too small to matter. But repetition gives small things weight. What looks tiny today can become powerful when time multiplies it. The disturbing part is that compound choices work in both directions. Discipline compounds, but so does avoidance. Confidence compounds, but so does fear. Self-respect compounds, but so does self-betrayal. A person does not usually wake up suddenly lost. They arrive there through many small moments where they chose comfort over truth, distraction over discipline, silence over honesty, or familiarity over growth. Compound choices also explain why change can feel invisible at first. You may be improving while nothing seems to move. You may be healing while the results still look small. But every repeated choice is casting a vote for the person you are becoming. Once you understand compound choices, you stop worshiping big moments and begin respecting small ones. You ask, what is this choice building if I repeat it for years? That question can make ordinary moments feel dangerous, sacred, and powerful. Attention protection. Attention protection is one of the most important concepts because it reveals that your focus is not something you can leave unguarded. Your attention is the doorway into your mind. Whatever enters repeatedly begins to shape your emotions, desires, beliefs, fears, habits, and identity. If you do not protect your attention, the world will spend it for you. This becomes powerful because attention is constantly being hunted. Social media wants your scrolling. Advertisers want your desire. News wants your fear. Toxic people want your reaction. Entertainment wants your time. Even your own worries want space in your mind. Every day, countless things are competing to occupy the part of you that creates your life. The unsettling part is that losing attention does not always feel dangerous at first. It feels like checking your phone, watching one more video, replying to one unnecessary message, entering one pointless argument, or worrying about one thing you cannot control. But slowly, your mind becomes crowded with things that do not deserve ownership of your inner world. Attention protection matters because what you focus on expands inside you. If you keep feeding comparison, you feel behind. If you keep feeding fear, you feel unsafe. If you keep feeding distraction, your real goals begin to feel distant. Your attention becomes the soil where your future grows. Once you understand attention protection, you begin asking, does this deserve my mind? That question can change your day, your habits, your peace, and your direction. Protecting attention is not about ignoring life. It is about refusing to let noise become the ruler of your inner world. Comfort cost. Comfort cost is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows that comfort is never free. Every time a person chooses comfort, they may also be paying with growth, truth, discipline, courage, self-respect, opportunity, or future peace. Comfort feels harmless in the moment because it reduces pressure, avoids discomfort, and keeps life familiar. But what feels easy today can become expensive over time. This becomes powerful because comfort often hides its price. Staying silent may feel comfortable, but the cost may be resentment. Avoiding risk may feel safe, but the cost may be regret. Remaining in a familiar place may feel peaceful, but the cost may be becoming smaller than your potential. Saying yes to please others may feel easier, but the cost may be losing yourself. The unsettling part is that comfort can slowly train people to fear growth. The more you avoid discomfort, the more threatening discomfort begins to feel. A hard conversation becomes unbearable. A new opportunity feels dangerous. A disciplined routine feels like punishment. The mind starts protecting ease as if ease is the same as safety. Comfort cost also explains why some people stay stuck for years. They do not always lack intelligence or dreams. They are simply paying for comfort with the life they claim to want. Every postponed decision, avoided truth, and repeated excuse collects interest. Once you understand comfort cost, you begin asking, what is this comfort taking from me? That question can expose the hidden bill behind ease. Sometimes the uncomfortable choice is not the punishment. Sometimes it is the doorway out of a life that has become too expensive to keep avoiding. Practical fear. Practical fear is one of the most deceptive concepts because it shows how fear often disguises itself as wisdom, maturity, patience, or realism. Practical fear does not always sound panicked. It sounds reasonable. It says, be careful, wait until later, do not expect too much, stay where you are, what if it fails, or this is not the right time. Because it uses calm language, many people mistake it for good judgment. This becomes powerful because fear is easier to obey when it sounds responsible. A person may avoid starting something meaningful because they call it planning. They may stay in a painful situation because they call it being realistic. They may reject a dream because they call it thinking logically. The fear is still there, but it has dressed itself in the language of safety. The disturbing part is that practical fear can steal years without ever looking dramatic. It does not always destroy a life loudly. Sometimes it simply delays it. One postponed decision becomes another. One avoided risk becomes a pattern. One quiet excuse becomes a lifestyle. Eventually, the person looks back and realizes they did not fail because they tried and lost. They failed because fear convinced them not to try at all. Practical fear also makes small lives feel sensible. It teaches people to call courage foolish, ambition unrealistic, and change dangerous. It protects them from embarrassment, but also blocks them from expansion. Once you understand practical fear, you begin asking, is this truly wisdom, or is fear speaking politely? That question can expose the difference between caution and captivity. Not every safe choice protects you. Some safe choices slowly erase you. Identity transition. Identity transition is one of the most uncomfortable concepts because it reveals that real change is not only about doing something new, it is about becoming someone your old self may not recognize. Identity transition happens when a person outgrows the beliefs, habits, roles, relationships, fears, and survival patterns that once made them feel safe. This becomes powerful because people often want a new life while trying to keep the same identity. They want confidence, but still identify as someone who must hide. They want peace, but still identify as someone who must explain everything. They want success, but still identify as someone who is not allowed to be seen. The new life cannot fully appear while the old self is still controlling the doorway. The unsettling part is that identity transition can feel like loss before it feels like freedom. You may lose the version of yourself that tolerated too much. You may lose people who only understood your old limits. You may lose habits that once comforted you. You may even feel guilty for becoming harder to control, harder to guilt, and harder to shrink. This is why growth often feels lonely. You are not only leaving places, you are leaving patterns. You are not only changing choices, you are changing the inner story that made those choices feel normal. Once you understand identity transition, you stop expecting transformation to feel comfortable. You begin asking, what version of me is this change asking me to release? That question can expose why progress feels heavy. Sometimes you are not stuck because you lack desire. You are stuck because the old identity is afraid of becoming irrelevant. Access, intimacy, confusion. Access, intimacy, confusion is one of the most misunderstood concepts because it reveals how easily people mistake closeness for connection. Access means someone can reach you, talk to you, see your private life, receive your time, hear your secrets, or enter your emotional space. Intimacy means they actually know you, respect you, understand you, protect your trust, and handle your vulnerability with care. This becomes powerful because modern life gives people access faster than it builds real intimacy. Someone can text you daily and still not truly value you. They can know your schedule, your pain, your fears, your habits, and your past, yet still not treat your heart with responsibility. They can be physically near, emotionally familiar, and constantly present, but still remain deeply unsafe. The disturbing part is that access can create the illusion of importance. You may think someone is close because they know personal details about you. You may think they care because they are always around. You may confuse constant communication with emotional depth, or confuse being needed with being loved. But some people only want access to your energy, not intimacy with your soul. Access, intimacy, confusion also makes boundaries feel confusing. When someone has had unlimited access to you, reducing that access can feel like betrayal to them, even if real intimacy was never there. They were close to your availability, not your truth. Once you understand access, intimacy, confusion, you begin asking, does this person have access to me, or have they earned intimacy with me? That question can expose false closeness. Not everyone who reaches you deserves to enter you. Narrative control. Narrative control is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that people do not only fight over what happened, they fight over how the story will be understood. A narrative is the version of events that gives meaning, blame, innocence, motive, and identity to a situation. Whoever controls the narrative often controls how others feel, judge, remember, and respond. This becomes powerful because truth can be weakened when the story around it is manipulated. Someone may hurt you, then present themselves as the victim. They may provoke you privately, then expose only your reaction publicly. They may leave out important details, exaggerate your flaws, soften their own actions, or frame your boundaries as cruelty. The event did not change, but the story around it did. The disturbing part is that narrative control can make innocent people look guilty, and guilty people look misunderstood. It can turn honesty into drama, self-respect into arrogance, silence into admission, and emotional pain into weakness. People who control narratives know that many listeners judge quickly, especially when the first version they hear feels convincing. Narrative control also happens inside your own mind. You may tell yourself, "I failed," when the fuller story is that you learned. You may say, "I was rejected," when the deeper truth is that something misaligned ended. The story you accept becomes the emotional prison or freedom you live inside. Once you understand narrative control, you begin asking, who benefits from this version of the story? That question can expose hidden motives, missing context, and emotional manipulation. Sometimes power is not in changing the facts. It is in making people believe a carefully shaped version of them. Hidden trade-offs. Hidden trade-offs are one of the most revealing concepts because they show that every choice gives you something while quietly taking something else. A trade-off is the unseen cost behind a decision. It is what you sacrifice for comfort, status, love, money, approval, speed, peace, safety, or success. Nothing is completely free, even when the price is not obvious at first. This becomes powerful because people often only look at what they are gaining. They choose a high-paying job and ignore the cost to their health. They stay in a relationship for companionship and ignore the cost to their self-respect. They chase popularity and ignore the cost to their privacy. They avoid conflict and ignore the cost of carrying resentment. The visible reward distracts them from the invisible payment. The unsettling part is that hidden trade-offs can shape an entire life quietly. You may gain acceptance by hiding your truth, but lose yourself slowly. You may gain comfort by avoiding risk, but lose growth. You may gain control by never trusting anyone, but lose intimacy. You may gain peace in the short term by staying silent, but lose emotional honesty over time. Hidden trade-offs also expose why some good choices still feel heavy. A decision can look successful from the outside while costing you something sacred inside. This is why wisdom is not only asking, "What will I gain?" Wisdom also asks, "What will this require from me?" Once you understand hidden trade-offs, you stop being seduced by surface benefits. You begin asking, "What am I paying for this? And is the price worth the reward?" That question can reveal the real cost of the life you are building. Avoidance pattern. Avoidance pattern is one of the most damaging concepts because it reveals how people slowly build entire lives around what they refuse to face. Avoidance is not only running away from danger, it can be ignoring a conversation, delaying a decision, suppressing a feeling, distracting yourself from pain, pretending not to know the truth, or staying busy so silence never catches you. This becomes powerful because avoidance gives temporary relief while creating long-term consequences. A person may avoid a hard conversation and feel calm for one day, but the resentment keeps growing. They may avoid looking at their finances and feel less anxious for a moment, but the problem becomes heavier. They may avoid admitting a relationship is hurting them, but the body keeps carrying what the mouth refuses to say. The disturbing part is that avoidance can disguise itself as patience, peace, maturity, or timing. Someone may say, "I do not want drama," when they actually fear confrontation. They may say, "I will deal with it later," while later becomes a hiding place. They may say, "I am fine," because naming the pain would force them to change something. Avoidance pattern becomes dangerous because what you refuse to face does not disappear. It becomes a shadow decision. It starts choosing for you. It shapes your mood, your health, your relationships, your confidence, and your future from behind the scenes. Once you understand avoidance pattern, you begin asking, "What am I pretending not to know?" That question can feel uncomfortable, but it can also break the spell. Sometimes the life you want is waiting behind the truth you keep avoiding. Attachment reaction. Attachment reaction is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows that people do not always react to what happened. They react to what they are emotionally attached to losing. Attachment is the invisible bond between a person and something they believe gives them safety, identity, comfort, control, love, status, or meaning. When that bond feels threatened, the reaction can become stronger than the situation itself. This becomes powerful because attachment can make small events feel enormous. Someone may panic over a delayed reply, not because the delay is dangerous, but because they are attached to being chosen. They may become angry when corrected, not because the correction is cruel, but because they are attached to looking competent. They may feel destroyed by rejection, not only because someone left, but because their sense of worth was attached to being wanted. The unsettling part is that attachment reaction often disguises itself as truth. A person says, "You hurt me," when sometimes what they mean is, "You threaten something I depend on emotionally." They may accuse, withdraw, chase, beg, control, or punish, not because the moment deserves that response, but because their attachment has been activated. Attachment reaction also explains why people defend unhealthy things. They may defend a toxic relationship because they are attached to familiarity. They may defend a painful belief because they are attached to identity. They may defend a controlling system because they are attached to belonging. Once you understand attachment reaction, you begin asking, "What am I afraid of losing right now?" That question can expose the hidden emotional dependency beneath the reaction. Sometimes the strongest feeling is not proof of truth, it is proof of attachment. Change resistance. Change resistance is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that people do not always resist change because they hate progress. They often resist change because it threatens the identity, comfort, routine, relationships, excuses, and emotional patterns they already know. Change does not only ask a person to do something different, it asks them to become someone different. This becomes powerful because even positive change can feel dangerous. A person may want peace, but peace requires them to stop returning to chaos. They may want success, but success requires visibility, discipline, pressure, and responsibility. They may want healing, but healing requires them to stop using pain as an explanation for everything. The mind may desire the result while fearing the transformation needed to reach it. The disturbing part is that change resistance can hide behind reasonable words. Someone may say, "I am not ready. This is just who I am. I need more time," or "Things are fine the way they are." Sometimes these statements are honest, but sometimes they are fear, protecting the familiar self from being replaced. Change resistance also appears when people around you dislike your growth. Your improvement may expose their stagnation. Your boundaries may threaten their access. Your confidence may disturb people who were comfortable with your insecurity. Not everyone resists your change because you are wrong. Some resist because your growth changes the role they expected you to keep playing. Once you understand change resistance, you stop assuming stuckness means lack of desire. You begin asking, what part of me benefits from staying the same? That question can expose the hidden fear behind delay and the old identity fighting to survive. Usefulness trap. Usefulness trap is one of the most painful concepts because it reveals how easily a person can become valued for what they provide, not for who they are. The usefulness trap happens when you're giving, helping, fixing, listening, rescuing, solving, sacrificing, or availability becomes the main reason people keep you close. You are accepted because you are useful, but not always loved with responsibility. This becomes powerful because being needed can feel like being valued. A person may keep saying yes because others praise their kindness. They may keep carrying everyone's problems because it makes them feel important. They may keep overextending themselves because the moment they stop helping, they fear they will stop mattering. Slowly, love becomes confused with service. The disturbing part is that usefulness can become a prison. People may not ask how tired you are because they are benefiting from your strength. They may not notice your pain because your role is to notice theirs. They may call you reliable while quietly depending on your inability to disappoint them. Your exhaustion becomes invisible because your usefulness keeps producing comfort for others. Usefulness trap also makes boundaries feel like betrayal. When you finally say no, some people act shocked, offended, or abandoned. Not because you harmed them, but because the version of you they preferred was the one that had no limits. Once you understand usefulness trap, you begin asking, do these people love me, or do they love what I do for them? That question can hurt, but it can also save you. You were not born to be everyone's emotional tool. Being useful is good, but being used is not love. Thought selection. Thought selection is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that not every thought deserves your attention, belief, energy, or obedience. The mind produces thoughts constantly: fears, memories, doubts, desires, warnings, judgments, fantasies, regrets, and assumptions. But having a thought does not mean the thought is true. It only means the mind has offered something for awareness. This becomes powerful because many people suffer not from the first thought, but from the thoughts they keep entertaining. A random fear appears, and they build a whole future around it. A painful memory returns, and they reopen the emotional wound. A negative assumption enters, and they treat it like evidence. The thought was only a visitor, but attention turns it into a resident. The disturbing part is that thoughts can become identities when selected repeatedly. If you keep choosing thoughts of failure, you begin to feel incapable. If you keep choosing thoughts of rejection, you begin to expect abandonment. If you keep choosing thoughts of anger, you begin to see enemies everywhere. The mind becomes the environment you live inside. Thought selection does not mean forcing yourself to be positive. It means becoming conscious of what you feed. You can notice a thought without following it. You can hear fear without obeying it. You can feel doubt without building your life around it. Once you understand thought selection, you begin asking, does this thought deserve my energy, or is it only asking for attention? That question can create distance between you and mental noise. Freedom begins when you stop treating every thought like a command. Pain philosophy. Pain philosophy is one of the most dangerous concepts because it reveals how one painful experience can slowly become the lens through which a person explains all of life. Pain philosophy happens when hurt stops being a memory and becomes a belief system. The person does not only remember what happened, they start building rules, expectations, fears, and identity around it. This becomes powerful because the mind wants pain to mean something. If someone was betrayed, they may create the philosophy that no one can be trusted. If they were rejected, they may believe love always ends in abandonment. If they failed publicly, they may decide visibility is unsafe. The original wound becomes a teacher, but sometimes it teaches fear instead of wisdom. The disturbing part is that pain philosophy can sound deep, mature, and realistic. A person may say, "People always leave," "Hope is dangerous," "Kindness is weakness," or "I do not need anyone." These statements may sound like strength, but sometimes they are only old hurt trying to protect itself from being touched again. Pain philosophy can make people reject good things before those things have a chance to prove themselves. They may push away love, avoid opportunity, distrust peace, or sabotage growth because their pain has already written the ending. They are not responding to the present. They are obeying a theory created by suffering. Once you understand pain philosophy, you begin asking, is this wisdom or is this pain pretending to be wisdom? That question can separate truth from injury. Not every lesson pain teaches deserves to become the law of your life. Humiliation fear. Humiliation fear is one of the most controlling concepts because it reveals that many people are not truly afraid of failure itself. They are afraid of being seen failing. Humiliation fear is the fear of looking foolish, weak, rejected, exposed, unprepared, unwanted, or inferior in front of others. It is the fear that one mistake could become a public wound. This becomes powerful because humiliation can control behavior before anything even happens. A person may refuse to speak in a room, not because they have nothing valuable to say, but because they fear being judged. They may avoid trying something new, not because they cannot learn, but because being a beginner feels embarrassing. They may hide their dreams because the thought of people laughing feels heavier than the dream itself. The disturbing part is that humiliation fear can shrink an entire life quietly. It teaches people to choose safety over expression, invisibility over growth, silence over honesty, and comfort over courage. A person may call it humility, realism, or caution, when deep down, they are only trying to avoid the emotional pain of being watched while imperfect. Humiliation fear also gives other people too much power. When you fear embarrassment more than regret, the crowd becomes your prison. Their opinions decide what you attempt, how loudly you speak, how boldly you live, and how much of yourself you reveal. Once you understand humiliation fear, you begin asking, am I avoiding this because it is wrong for me, or because I fear looking foolish? That question can expose where shame has been controlling your choices. Many people do not lack ability. They lack permission to be seen learning. Understanding addiction. Understanding addiction is one of the most exhausting concepts because it reveals how deeply a person can become trapped by the need to be explained, heard, validated, and emotionally recognized. It happens when someone cannot rest unless others understand their feelings, intentions, pain, choices, or side of the story. Being misunderstood begins to feel like danger. This becomes powerful because the need to be understood can look innocent. A person may keep explaining because they want peace. They may keep defending themselves because they want fairness. They may keep reopening conversations because they believe one perfect sentence will finally make someone see them clearly. But sometimes, the other person is not confused. They are committed to misunderstanding. The disturbing part is that understanding addiction can make you hand power to people who have no intention of being fair. You keep giving more words, more evidence, more patience, more vulnerability, hoping they will finally stop twisting you. Meanwhile, they learn that your peace depends on their approval of your truth. Their refusal to understand becomes a leash. Understanding addiction also drains identity. You may begin shaping your words, softening your truth, hiding your anger, and over-explaining your boundaries just to avoid being judged wrongly. Slowly, your life becomes a courtroom, and you become both the accused and the lawyer. Once you understanding addiction, you begin asking, do I need clarity, or am I begging for permission to be at peace? That question can break the cycle. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your explanations. Sometimes freedom begins when you stop trying to be understood by people who benefit from misreading you. Negotiation boundary. Negotiation boundary is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals the difference between a flexible conversation and a line that should not be moved. A negotiation is where compromise belongs. A boundary is where self-respect begins. The danger comes when people treat your limits like offers, hoping enough pressure, guilt, emotion, or persistence will make you reduce the cost of accessing you. This becomes powerful because not everything deserves negotiation. Your peace is not a debate. Your body is not a debate. Your values are not a debate. Your need for respect is not a debate. But people who benefit from your flexibility may try to make every boundary feel negotiable. They may ask again, push harder, act wounded, accuse you of being harsh, or make you explain until your clarity becomes exhaustion. The disturbing part is that many people abandon themselves in the negotiation stage. They start with a clear no, then soften it to maybe. They ask for respect, then accept excuses. They set a standard, then lower it because someone looked disappointed. This is how boundaries collapse quietly, not because the person had no limits, but because they allowed their limits to be treated like bargaining material. Negotiation boundary also exposes who respects your personhood. Healthy people may ask questions, but they do not punish your limits. Controlling people keep negotiating because they do not want agreement, they want access. Once you understand negotiation boundary, you begin asking, is this a discussion, or is someone trying to talk me out of respecting myself? That question can protect your peace. Some things can be discussed. Some things must simply be honored. Hidden envy. Hidden envy is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows that not everyone who smiles at your growth is truly happy about it. Envy does not always appear as open hatred. Sometimes it hides behind jokes, silence, criticism, fake concern, sudden distance, or small comments designed to make your confidence feel unsafe. This becomes powerful because hidden envy often comes from people close enough to see your progress clearly. A stranger may ignore your success, but someone who compares themselves to you may feel threatened by it. Your improvement can remind them of what they avoided. Your courage can expose their fear. Your discipline can disturb their excuses. Your peace can make their chaos feel louder. The disturbing part is that hidden envy can disguise itself as advice. Someone may say, "Do not think you are better than everyone," when you are only growing. They may say, "Be realistic," when your ambition makes them uncomfortable. They may say, "You have changed," when they really mean, "Your old limitations made me feel safer." Their words may sound protective, but the energy behind them feels heavy. Hidden envy also shows up when people minimize what matters to you. They ignore your wins, exaggerate your mistakes, copy your ideas while criticizing your efforts, or support you only when you are struggling. Some people are comfortable loving your pain because your pain keeps you beneath their insecurity. Once you understand hidden envy, you stop sharing every dream with every ear. You begin asking, does this person respond to my growth with warmth or quiet resistance? That question can reveal who celebrates you, who studies you, and who secretly needs you smaller. Standard projection. Standard projection is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows that your standards are not just preferences, they are signals of the future you believe you deserve. A standard is the line your mind draws around what you accept, reject, expect, pursue, and tolerate. It quietly tells the world how you see your own value. This becomes powerful because people often project their inner worth through their standards. Someone who believes they deserve respect will notice disrespect faster and move differently around it. Someone who secretly feels unworthy may call poor treatment normal, not a big deal, or better than nothing. The outside choice often exposes the inside belief. The disturbing part is that low standards can feel humble, realistic, or patient when they are actually self-abandonment. A person may accept inconsistent love because they do not believe steady love is possible for them. They may undercharge, overgive, stay silent, or tolerate neglect because their inner image of themselves has not caught up with what they truly need. Standard projection also shapes how people respond to you. If you keep accepting crumbs, some people will never offer the table. If you keep rewarding disrespect with access, disrespect learns it can stay. If you keep lowering your requirements to avoid loss, you may attract people who only love the discounted version of you. Once you understand standard projection, you begin asking, what do my standards say I believe I deserve? That question can expose hidden self-worth wounds. Your standards are not only rules for others, they are reflections of the life your inner self has been trained to expect, accept, defend, repeat, and protect. Calm authority. Calm authority is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that true power does not always need volume, aggression, speed, or intimidation. Calm authority is the quiet strength a person carries when they are grounded, emotionally steady, and clear within themselves. They do not need to dominate the room because their presence already communicates control. This becomes powerful because people are deeply affected by emotional energy. A loud person may capture attention, but a calm person often controls the atmosphere. When everyone is panicking, the calm person becomes the center. When others are reacting, the calm person becomes the reference point. When emotions rise, the person who stays composed appears stronger, wiser, and harder to manipulate. The unsettling part is that calm authority can expose insecurity around it. People who rely on drama, pressure, guilt, or intimidation often become uncomfortable around someone who refuses to be pulled into emotional chaos. They may try harder to provoke, insult, rush, or shake the calm person because calmness removes their usual weapons. A person who cannot control your emotions has less control over you. Calm authority also changes how people listen to you. When you speak without desperation, your words carry more weight. When you disagree without losing yourself, your boundaries feel stronger. When you stay steady under pressure, people begin to sense that your confidence is not performance, it is internal structure. Once you understand calm authority, you begin asking, am I responding from control or reacting from emotional pressure? That question can return power instantly. Sometimes the strongest person in the room is not the one who speaks the most. It is the one no one can easily move. Distraction. Addiction. Distraction addiction is one of the most dangerous concepts because it reveals how people can become dependent on anything that keeps them away from themselves. Distraction is not only entertainment. It can be scrolling, gossip, work, food, shopping, music, noise, relationships, drama, constant planning, or endless information. Anything can become a distraction when it helps you avoid silence, truth, pain, boredom, fear, or responsibility. This becomes powerful because distraction gives instant relief. A person feels anxious, so they pick up their phone. They feel lonely, so they look for attention. They feel uncertain, so they consume more content instead of making a decision. They feel emotional pain, so they stay busy until they are too tired to think. The distraction does not heal the feeling, it only delays the meeting. The disturbing part is that distraction addiction can make a person lose their own life while feeling entertained. Hours disappear, goals become distant, emotions remain unprocessed, dreams stay postponed. The mind becomes trained to escape discomfort instead of understand it. Over time, stillness feels unbearable because the person has not practiced being alone with their inner world. Distraction addiction also makes people easier to influence. A distracted mind cannot think deeply, notice patterns, protect attention, or question what is being fed to it. It reacts more than it reflects. It consumes more than it creates. Once you understand distraction addiction, you begin asking, am I resting or am I running from something? That question can expose the difference between healthy enjoyment and emotional escape. Sometimes the thing stealing your future does not look harmful. It looks entertaining, harmless, and perfectly normal. Trust erosion. Trust erosion is one of the most painful concepts because it reveals that trust rarely disappears all at once. It usually dies slowly through repeated disappointments, broken promises, hidden truths, careless words, emotional inconsistency, and small moments where someone shows they cannot handle your safety with care. One betrayal may wound trust, but repeated patterns quietly destroy it. This becomes powerful because people often notice trust erosion only after they already feel emotionally tired. At first, you explain things away. You say they were stressed, busy, confused, hurt, or unaware. Then the same behavior returns. The apology sounds familiar. The promise feels weaker. The excuse becomes predictable. Slowly, your body stops relaxing around them, even when your heart still wants to believe. The disturbing part is that trust erosion can happen even when love is still present. You may care deeply for someone and still no longer feel safe with them. You may miss them and still question their words. You may want closeness, but your nervous system remembers every time they made closeness feel risky. Trust does not survive on feelings alone. It survives on repeated evidence. Trust erosion also changes the way you see yourself. You may become guarded, suspicious, easily triggered, or tired of explaining what should be obvious. This does not always mean you are broken. Sometimes it means your mind has learned from patterns your heart tried to ignore. Once you understand trust erosion, you begin asking, am I struggling to trust because I am fearful, or because the evidence keeps warning me? That question can reveal whether trust needs healing, distance, or proof that change is real. Battlefield selection. Battlefield selection is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that peace is not only about winning arguments, it is about choosing which conflicts deserve your energy. A battlefield is any place where your attention, emotions, time, dignity, or mental strength gets pulled into a fight. Not every fight is worth entering, even when you are right. This becomes powerful because many people lose themselves trying to prove points that will not change anything. They argue with people committed to misunderstanding them. They defend themselves to people who benefit from twisting the story. They explain their pain to people who have already decided not to care. The issue may be real, but the battlefield may be wrong. The disturbing part is that some battles are designed to drain you, not resolve anything. Toxic people may provoke you so they can control your reaction. Insecure people may pull you into competition so they can feel important. Online arguments may steal your focus while giving you nothing back. Family conflicts may repeat the same script for years because nobody truly wants change, only emotional victory. Battlefield selection teaches you that silence can be strategy, distance can be wisdom, and refusal can be power. Walking away does not always mean weakness. Sometimes it means you finally understand that your peace is too expensive to spend on every person who wants access to your reaction. Once you understand battlefield selection, you begin asking, will this conflict create clarity, change, or protection, or will it only consume me? That question can save your energy. Some battles deserve courage. Some battles deserve boundaries. Some battles deserve your absence. Obedience framing. Obedience framing is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows how control can be made to look like virtue. Obedience framing happens when people present compliance as respect, silence as maturity, submission as loyalty, and questioning as rebellion. The frame changes the meaning of behavior, so the person who obeys looks good, while the person who thinks independently looks difficult. This becomes powerful because most people do not want to appear disrespectful, ungrateful, disloyal, or selfish. So when obedience is framed as goodness, they begin to betray themselves just to avoid judgment. A child may stop speaking because they are told quietness means respect. An employee may accept unfair treatment because obedience is called professionalism. A partner may tolerate control because sacrifice is called love. The disturbing part is that obedience framing can make harmful systems look honorable. Families use it to protect image. Workplaces use it to avoid accountability. Leaders use it to silence criticism. Communities use it to punish anyone who questions old rules. The issue is not always obedience itself. The danger begins when obedience is demanded without fairness, truth, or moral responsibility. Obedience framing also trains people to fear their own voice. They start asking, will they be angry? Instead of, is this right? They start protecting approval more than conscience. Over time, they may confuse peace with silence and mistake being controlled for being respectful. Once you understand obedience framing, you begin asking, am I being respectful or am I being trained to ignore myself? That question can expose where obedience has replaced wisdom. True respect does not require you to disappear. Busyness illusion. Busyness illusion is one of the most deceptive concepts because it reveals how easily people confuse movement with progress. Being busy feels productive because there is activity, pressure, noise, responsibility, and exhaustion. But activity does not always mean advancement. A person can be busy all day and still avoid the one thing that would actually change their life. This becomes powerful because busyness gives people a sense of importance. They feel needed, occupied, and useful. They can say, I have no time, and it sounds responsible. But sometimes busyness becomes a hiding place. It helps people avoid hard decisions, uncomfortable emotions, deep thinking, honest conversations, or the fear of discovering they are spending their life on the wrong things. The disturbing part is that busyness can become socially rewarded self-abandonment. People praise exhaustion. They respect packed schedules. They admire those who are always running, always answering, always available, always overwhelmed. Slowly, a person may begin measuring their value by how tired they are instead of how meaningful their life is becoming. Busyness illusion also keeps people trapped in low-value motion. They reply to every message but neglect their purpose. They complete endless small tasks but avoid the difficult work that creates real change. They stay occupied enough to feel productive but not focused enough to become powerful. Once you understand busyness illusion, you begin asking, am I truly progressing or am I using activity to avoid clarity? That question can expose whether your energy is building a future or only keeping you distracted. A full schedule can still hide an empty direction. Sometimes the busiest person in the room is not the most disciplined, but the most afraid to pause. Pattern recognition. Pattern recognition is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that truth rarely appears only once. It repeats. A pattern is a repeated behavior, outcome, reaction, excuse, choice, silence, mistake, or emotional signal that shows you what is really happening beyond words. While many people get distracted by single moments, pattern recognition teaches you to study repetition. This becomes powerful because people often hide behind isolated explanations. They say, "It was just one mistake. I was tired. I did not mean it. You misunderstood," or "This time will be different." Sometimes that may be true, but when the same thing keeps returning, the pattern becomes louder than the explanation. Repetition reveals what apology may try to cover. The disturbing part is that ignoring patterns can keep people trapped for years. A person may keep trusting promises while the behavior remains unchanged. They may keep accepting excuses while the result stays the same. They may keep hoping someone will become different while the pattern keeps proving who they are. The mind clings to potential, but patterns reveal reality. Pattern recognition also protects you from emotional manipulation. Instead of judging people by intensity, charm, guilt, tears, or beautiful words, you begin watching consistency. Do their actions match their claims? Do they change after accountability, or only after consequences? Do they respect your boundaries, or only pretend until access returns? Once you understand pattern recognition, you begin asking, "What keeps repeating here?" That question can cut through confusion. One moment can lie, one apology can impress, one promise can sound convincing. But a pattern is harder to fake because time eventually exposes what words were designed to hide. Permission effect. Permission effect is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows that what you allow once can quietly become what others feel permitted to repeat. Permission is not always spoken. Sometimes it is created through silence, delayed consequences, nervous laughter, repeated forgiveness, weak boundaries, or pretending something did not hurt when it clearly did. This becomes powerful because people study what they can get away with. If someone interrupts you and you never correct it, they may assume your voice can be stepped over. If someone disrespects your time and still receives full access to you, they may learn that your time has no real protection. If someone hurts you, apologizes without changing, and still gets the same closeness, the apology may become a key instead of a transformation. The disturbing part is that permission effect can make mistreatment grow slowly. At first, it may look small: a careless comment, a broken promise, a late reply, a little disrespect, a small invasion of privacy. But when there is no clear response, the behavior can become bolder. What begins as a test can become a pattern. Permission effect also works inside your own life. If you keep allowing yourself to delay, avoid, overthink, or abandon your standards, your mind begins to treat those behaviors as normal. You teach yourself what is acceptable by what you keep repeating. Once you understand permission effect, you begin asking, "What am I giving permission to continue?" That question can expose the hidden agreements your silence has been signing. Sometimes people do not need your yes to continue. They only need your lack of consequence. Over-explaining trap. Over-explaining trap is one of the most exhausting concepts because it reveals how people can become trapped trying to make others approve of their truth. Over-explaining happens when you keep adding more words, more reasons, more details, more softness, and more proof because you fear being misunderstood, judged, rejected, or seen as wrong. This becomes powerful because over-explaining often feels like responsibility. A person may believe they are being mature, fair, respectful, or clear, but sometimes they are not explaining for clarity. They are explaining because they are scared of someone's reaction. They are trying to make their boundary sound gentle enough, their pain sound acceptable enough, or their decision sound reasonable enough to avoid punishment. The disturbing part is that over-explaining can hand control to the wrong person. When someone realizes you need them to understand before you can feel at peace, they can keep questioning, twisting, doubting, or challenging you. Your explanation becomes a door they keep forcing open. Instead of respecting your words, they make you keep working for permission. Over-explaining also weakens your inner authority. The more you defend a simple truth, the more you may begin doubting it. A clear no becomes a paragraph. A valid feeling becomes a court case. A personal decision becomes something you feel guilty for making without approval. Once you understand over-explaining trap, you begin asking, am I explaining to create understanding, or am I begging to be allowed? That question can return your power. Some people need clarity. Some people only want enough words to find a weakness. Avoidance signal. Avoidance signal is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows that what a person avoids often says more than what they openly express. Avoidance is not always silence. It can be changing the subject, delaying action, making jokes, acting busy, becoming defensive, giving vague answers, disappearing emotionally, or pretending something does not matter. Avoidance is often the mind pointing toward a truth it is not ready to face. This becomes powerful because people may hide their deepest fears behind what they refuse to discuss. Someone who avoids accountability may be protecting their ego. Someone who avoids commitment may be afraid of losing control. Someone who avoids rest may be running from their own thoughts. Someone who avoids honest conversation may already know the truth, but fears what will happen once it is spoken. The disturbing part is that avoidance can look harmless from the outside. A person may say, I forgot, I am busy, it is not a big deal, or we will talk later. But when avoidance becomes repeated, it turns into information. It shows where discomfort lives. It reveals what someone cannot handle, what they are protecting, or what they are hoping will disappear without consequence. Avoidance signal also applies to your own life. The task you keep delaying, the feeling you keep suppressing, the conversation you keep postponing, and the decision you keep circling may be showing you exactly where growth is waiting. Once you understand avoidance signal, you begin asking, what is this avoidance trying to reveal? That question can expose fear, guilt, truth, resistance, or emotional attachment. Sometimes the thing being avoided is not small. It is the doorway your life keeps asking you to open. Expectation prison. Expectation prison is one of the most quietly painful concepts because it reveals how people can become trapped by the version of life others expected them to live. Expectations can come from family, culture, society, religion, friends, school, success standards, gender roles, past promises, or the image people built of you before you fully knew yourself. This becomes powerful because expectations often feel like duty. A person may choose a career they do not want because their family calls it pride. They may stay in a relationship because leaving would disappoint people. They may silence their real personality because being accepted feels safer than being honest. Slowly, their life becomes a performance designed to keep others comfortable. The disturbing part is that expectation prison can feel like love from the outside. People may say, "We only want the best for you," while refusing to accept what your best actually looks like. They may praise you when you obey the script and punish you emotionally when you begin writing your own. Their approval becomes the bars, and your fear of disappointing them becomes the lock. Expectation prison also makes freedom feel selfish. You may feel guilty for wanting a different life, even when the current one is draining you. You may feel cruel for choosing yourself, even when you have spent years abandoning yourself to satisfy people who never asked if you were happy. Once you understand expectation prison, you begin asking, am I living my life or maintaining the version of me others find convenient? That question can shake everything. Sometimes the life you fear disappointing people with is the first life that finally belongs to you. Defensive listening. Defensive listening is one of the most damaging concepts because it reveals how people can hear words without truly receiving them. Defensive listening happens when a person listens mainly to protect their ego, justify their behavior, prepare a comeback, or prove they are not wrong. They may appear present, but internally they are searching for threat instead of understanding. This becomes powerful because many conversations fail, not because the truth was unclear, but because the listener was already defending themselves before the message landed. Someone says, "You hurt me," and the defensive listener hears, "You are a bad person." Someone gives feedback and they hear, "You are not good enough." Someone asks for change and they hear, "You are being attacked." The disturbing part is that defensive listening can make honest communication feel impossible. You may speak gently, carefully, and respectfully, yet the other person still reacts as if you declared war. They interrupt, explain, deny, blame, minimize, or turn the conversation back on you. Instead of asking, "What are they trying to tell me?" they ask, "How do I protect myself from feeling guilty?" Defensive listening also destroys trust over time. When people cannot bring pain to you without being punished for it, they stop being honest. They become quiet, distant, careful, or emotionally tired. The relationship may continue, but truth begins leaving the room. Once you understand defensive listening, you begin asking, "Am I listening to understand or listening to defend my image?" That question can expose the ego before it damages the connection. Sometimes the strongest response is not a perfect argument. It is the courage to hear what your pride wants to reject. Clarity threat. Clarity threat is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows why some people become uncomfortable when you finally see things clearly. Clarity is the moment confusion breaks. You understand the pattern, the motive, the excuse, the manipulation, the repeated disrespect, or the truth you were once too attached to admit. Once clarity arrives, control becomes harder. This becomes powerful because confusion often benefits someone. When you are confused, you explain more, wait longer, tolerate more, forgive faster, and keep searching for answers in places that already showed you the answer. But when you become clear, you stop negotiating with patterns. You stop mistaking mixed signals for depth. You stop calling inconsistency a complicated love. You stop giving endless chances to people who only change when access is threatened. The disturbing part is that clarity can make certain people panic. They may call you cold, dramatic, bitter, changed, or difficult because your blindness once protected their comfort. They may try to pull you back into confusion by rewriting events, denying patterns, acting wounded, or making you question your memory. Their goal is not always peace. Sometimes their goal is to make your certainty feel cruel. Clarity threat also appears inside yourself. A truth you finally see may threaten the old story you were using to survive. You may realize the problem was not misunderstanding, timing, or lack of effort, but repeated evidence you kept softening. Once you understand clarity threat, you begin asking, who becomes uncomfortable when I stop being confused? That question can expose who benefited from your doubt. Clarity does not destroy what is real. It only removes protection from what was false. Depersonalization. Depersonalization is one of the most freeing concepts because it reveals that not everything people do is about you. Many reactions, judgments, delays, insults, rejections, silences, and mood changes come from someone else's fear, insecurity, pain, stress, conditioning, ego, or private battle. But the mind often personalizes them because pain feels easier to explain when it has a direct target. This becomes powerful because personalization can turn another person's limitation into your emotional prison. Someone ignores you, and you think, I am not important. Someone criticizes you, and you think, I am not good enough. Someone leaves, and you think, I was not worth staying for. But sometimes their behavior is not a final verdict on your value. Sometimes it is only evidence of what they could not handle, give, face, or understand. The disturbing part is that people can spend years carrying guilt that was never theirs. A parent's coldness becomes a child's shame. A partner's dishonesty becomes someone's insecurity. A friend's envy becomes your self-doubt. Someone else's inability to love properly becomes your belief that you are hard to love. Depersonalization does not mean denying pain. It means separating your worth from other people's behavior. You can acknowledge that something hurt without turning it into proof that something is wrong with you. Once you understand depersonalization, you begin asking, is this truly about me, or am I absorbing someone else's limitation as my identity? That question can return your peace. Not every wound deserves to become a mirror. Sometimes people reveal themselves, and your only mistake was thinking they were revealing your value. Protective loss. Protective loss is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that not every loss is punishment. Sometimes what leaves your life is protecting you from something your emotions could not yet see. Protective loss happens when a relationship, opportunity, plan, identity, place, or desire disappears, not to destroy you, but to separate you from what would have cost you more if it stayed. This becomes powerful because people often judge loss too early. A person may cry over someone leaving, not realizing that person would have kept breaking their peace. They may feel rejected from an opportunity, not knowing it would have trapped them in pressure, exhaustion, or false identity. They may mourn a closed door, not realizing it was blocking them from walking into a life that matched them better. The disturbing part is that protection can feel like pain at first. The mind does not always understand mercy when it arrives disguised as disappointment. It only feels absence, confusion, silence, and grief. You may think life is taking something from you, when life may be removing what your attachment kept defending. Protective loss also exposes how deeply people can love what is not good for them. Familiar pain can feel worth saving. A damaging connection can feel like destiny. A shrinking environment can feel like home. But sometimes, losing access is the only way your future survives your attachment. Once you understand protective loss, you begin asking, what could this loss be saving me from? That question does not erase the pain, but it changes the meaning. Sometimes what did not stay was not stolen from you. It was removed before it could quietly ruin you. Boundary exploitation. Boundary exploitation is one of the most dangerous concepts because it reveals how some people do not simply ignore your limits. They study them, test them, weaken them, and use them for access. A boundary is meant to protect your peace, time, energy, body, values, and emotional safety. But to someone who benefits from your lack of firmness, your boundary is not respected as a line. It is treated like an obstacle to defeat. This becomes powerful because exploitation rarely begins loudly. It starts with small tests. They ask for one more favor. They push after you said no. They make you feel guilty for needing space. They act confused about a limit you already explained. They apologize just enough to regain access, then repeat the same behavior once you soften. The disturbing part is that boundary exploitation often hides behind affection, urgency, helplessness, or victimhood. Someone may say, "I really need you," when they mean, "I know your guilt can move you." They may say, "You are overreacting," when they mean, "Your limit is making my access harder." They may turn your kindness into a weakness and your patience into permission. Boundary exploitation also makes people doubt themselves. You may begin wondering if you are too harsh, too sensitive, too cold, or too selfish, when in reality, someone has trained you to feel guilty for protecting yourself. Once you understand boundary exploitation, you begin asking, Is this person respecting my limit or searching for the weakest part of it? That question can expose manipulation quickly. People who love you responsibly may not always like your boundaries, but they do not keep trying to break them. Repetition conditioning. Repetition conditioning is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals how repeated experiences train the mind to expect, accept, and repeat certain realities. Conditioning does not always happen through one dramatic event. Sometimes it happens through the same message, treatment, habit, fear, reward, disappointment, or emotional pattern being repeated until the mind begins to treat it as normal. This becomes powerful because repetition can shape identity without asking permission. A person repeatedly ignored may begin believing their voice does not matter. A person repeatedly criticized may start expecting humiliation before they even try. A person repeatedly disappointed may stop trusting good moments because their nervous system has been trained to wait for the pain that usually follows. The disturbing part is that repetition conditioning can make harmful things feel natural. If chaos repeats long enough, peace may feel suspicious. If disrespect repeats long enough, respect may feel unfamiliar. If failure repeats long enough, success may feel like something meant for other people. The mind does not only remember what happened, it prepares you to live as if it will happen again. Repetition conditioning also explains why people return to old patterns even when they know better. The body often follows what has been practiced most, not what has been understood once. A new truth may inspire you, but an old pattern may still feel stronger because it has been rehearsed for years. Once you understand repetition conditioning, you begin asking, what has my life been training me to expect? That question can expose the hidden lessons repeated experience has placed inside you. To change your future, you must stop rehearsing the pattern that taught your mind to obey the past. Confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is one of the most dangerous concepts because it reveals how the mind searches for evidence that supports what it already believes. Instead of looking for truth with complete honesty, the brain often looks for proof that its current fear, opinion, suspicion, identity, or expectation is correct. It does not always want accuracy. Sometimes it wants emotional confirmation. This becomes powerful because confirmation bias can make people feel certain while they are only collecting one-sided evidence. If someone believes they are unlovable, they may notice every delay, every cold tone, and every small distance, while ignoring care, kindness, and loyalty. If someone believes all people betray, they may study every mistake as proof and dismiss every honest action as temporary. The mind becomes a lawyer for its own belief. The disturbing part is that confirmation bias can trap people inside false realities. They stop seeing the full picture and only see what supports the story they already carry. A jealous person finds proof everywhere. A fearful person sees danger everywhere. A bitter person sees bad motives everywhere. The world may be wider than their belief, but their attention keeps narrowing it. Confirmation bias also makes arguments difficult. People do not only reject opposing evidence, they may feel attacked by it. New information threatens the emotional structure they have built, so they defend the belief instead of examining it. Once you understand confirmation bias, you begin asking, am I searching for truth or only searching for proof that I was right? That question can interrupt mental blindness. Sometimes the evidence you keep finding is not the whole truth. It is only the part your mind was already trained to notice. Fear-driven choice. Fear-driven choice is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows how many decisions are not made from desire, wisdom, or truth, but from the need to avoid pain. Fear-driven choice happens when a person chooses based on what might embarrass them, reject them, expose them, disappoint others, or make them lose control, instead of what would actually help them grow. This becomes powerful because fear rarely announces itself clearly. It hides inside safe-sounding decisions. A person may stay quiet and call it peace. They may remain in the wrong place and call it patience. They may reject an opportunity and call it realism. They may keep pleasing others and call it kindness. But underneath the explanation, fear may be the real decision maker. The disturbing part is that fear-driven choices can create a life that looks stable from the outside but feels dead inside. You avoid rejection but also avoid connection. You avoid failure but also avoid mastery. You avoid judgment but also avoid visibility. You avoid discomfort but also avoid becoming the version of yourself that requires courage. Fear-driven choice also becomes a pattern. The more you obey fear, the more powerful fear feels. Each avoided step teaches the mind that avoidance is protection. Over time, the person does not simply fear life. They build a life designed around not being hurt. Once you understand fear-driven choice, you begin asking, am I choosing this because it is right, or because I am scared of what might happen if I do not? That question can expose the hidden ruler behind many decisions. Fear may protect you from pain, but it can also quietly protect you from your own future. Invisible loneliness. Invisible loneliness is one of the most painful concepts because it reveals that a person can be surrounded by people and still feel deeply unseen. This kind of loneliness does not always come from being physically alone. It comes from being emotionally unknown, misunderstood, unheard, or only valued for the role you play in other people's lives. This becomes powerful because invisible loneliness can hide behind normal-looking connections. A person may have friends, family, a partner, co-workers, messages, and social attention, yet still feel like nobody truly notices what is happening inside them. They may be included in conversations, but never deeply understood. They may be needed by many people, but emotionally held by no one. The disturbing part is that invisible loneliness can make people question their own pain. They think, how can I feel lonely when people are around me? But presence is not the same as connection. Attention is not the same as intimacy. Conversation is not the same as being known. Sometimes the loneliest place is not an empty room. It is a full room where no one can feel the real you. Invisible loneliness also grows when a person becomes too good at functioning. They smile, help, work, respond, and perform strength so well that people stop checking on their heart. Their competence becomes a mask everyone trusts. Once you understand invisible loneliness, you begin asking, am I connected or only surrounded? That question can expose the difference between company and emotional belonging. Sometimes the ache is not asking for more people. It is asking for one safe place where you no longer have to disappear to be accepted. Environment mismatch. Environment mismatch is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows that sometimes the problem is not your ability, discipline, intelligence, or worth. Sometimes you are simply trying to grow in a place that keeps feeding the opposite version of you. Environment mismatch happens when your surroundings do not support the person you are becoming. This becomes powerful because the wrong environment can make a capable person look weak. A creative person may seem lazy in a place that punishes imagination. A sensitive person may seem dramatic around people who mock emotion. A disciplined person may keep losing focus in a space filled with noise, chaos, and distraction. A confident person may begin shrinking around people who constantly criticize growth. The disturbing part is that environment mismatch can make you blame yourself for what your surroundings are quietly doing to you. You may think, I am not focused, when your environment is designed for interruption. You may think, I am not confident, when you keep living around people who benefit from your insecurity. You may think, I cannot change, when the place you are in keeps rewarding the old version of you. Environment mismatch also explains why some people transform quickly after changing rooms, friendships, routines, workplaces, or relationships. The potential was always there, but the setting was suppressing it. Sometimes growth does not begin with more effort. Sometimes it begins with moving away from what keeps poisoning your effort. Once you understand environment mismatch, you begin asking, is this environment helping me become myself or training me to betray myself? That question can expose why you feel tired, small, stuck, or unseen in places that were never built for your becoming. Conditional attachment. Conditional attachment is one of the most painful concepts because it reveals how some connections are not built on true love but on performance. Conditional attachment happens when affection, approval, closeness, kindness, or acceptance is given only when you behave in a way that keeps someone comfortable. You are loved when you obey the role, but emotionally punished when you become too honest, too independent, too different, or too difficult to control. This becomes powerful because conditional attachment can look like real love in the beginning. Someone may praise you when you are useful, gentle, quiet, available, forgiving, or agreeable. They may act warm when you meet their needs and become cold when you express your own. Slowly, you learn to earn connection by abandoning parts of yourself. The disturbing part is that conditional attachment trains people to fear authenticity. A person may stop saying what they feel because honesty risks distance. They may keep overgiving because receiving love depends on being needed. They may hide anger, sadness, ambition, boundaries, or disagreement because the relationship only feels safe when they stay convenient. Conditional attachment can also make you confuse anxiety with love. When affection keeps coming and going based on your behavior, you may become addicted to winning it back. The small return of warmth feels powerful because your nervous system has been starving for it. Once you understand conditional attachment, you begin asking, am I loved here, or am I being rewarded for staying acceptable? That question can expose the difference between real connection and emotional control. True love does not require you to disappear in order to remain chosen. Discomfort tolerance. Discomfort tolerance is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that growth often depends on how much discomfort a person can face without running back to the familiar. Discomfort is not always danger. Sometimes it is the feeling that appears when you are changing, learning, waiting, healing, speaking truth, setting boundaries, or stepping into a version of yourself that your old life never trained you to be. This becomes powerful because many people do not quit because they are incapable. They quit because discomfort feels unbearable. They avoid hard conversations because tension feels painful. They abandon discipline because effort feels heavy. They return to unhealthy people because loneliness feels frightening. They stay small because visibility feels exposed. The problem is not always the situation. Sometimes it is the inability to remain steady while discomfort passes through. The disturbing part is that low discomfort tolerance can quietly control an entire life. It makes temporary unease look like a warning sign. It convinces people that if something feels hard, it must be wrong. It makes peace feel boring after chaos, healing feel lonely after attachment, and progress feel unsafe after years of survival. Discomfort tolerance also separates desire from transformation. Anyone can want change when it sounds beautiful, but real change asks you to sit with uncertainty, delay pleasure, face truth, disappoint people, and keep moving when your emotions beg for the old pattern. Once you understand discomfort tolerance, you begin asking, am I in danger, or am I just uncomfortable? That question can save your future. Some discomfort is not trying to harm you. It is trying to stretch the part of you that was trained to escape too soon. Revelation thinking. Revelation thinking is one of the most powerful concepts because it teaches you to stop asking only, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this showing me?" It is the ability to treat experiences as information, not just pain, luck, punishment, or inconvenience. Every repeated pattern, disappointment, delay, conflict, attraction, fear, and emotional reaction can reveal something about your life if you are willing to look deeper. This becomes powerful because many people suffer without learning from what their suffering is exposing. They focus only on the event, not the message inside the event. A failed relationship may reveal where you ignored patterns. A rejection may reveal where you were seeking worth from the wrong place. A repeated conflict may reveal a boundary you keep failing to protect. A delay may reveal whether your peace depends too much on control. The disturbing part is that revelation thinking can be uncomfortable because it removes the luxury of blindness. Once something reveals itself, you can no longer honestly pretend not to know. You may realize someone's apology was only a reset button. You may realize your exhaustion is not from life, but from overgiving. You may realize your anger is not just anger, but years of self-betrayal asking to be heard. Revelation thinking also changes pain into awareness. It does not make every painful thing good, but it prevents pain from becoming meaningless. Instead of being trapped in the question, "Why me?" you begin asking, "What truth is trying to reach me through this?" That question can turn confusion into clarity and make every experience a mirror instead of a prison. Peace sabotage loop. Peace sabotage loop is one of the most painful concepts because it reveals how people can desire peace while still protecting the habits, people, thoughts, and patterns that destroy it. A person may say they want calm, healing, stability, and emotional freedom, but when peace actually appears, something inside them begins searching for the old chaos again. This becomes powerful because peace can feel unfamiliar to a nervous system trained by stress. If someone grew up around conflict, calmness may feel empty. If love always came with anxiety, steady affection may feel boring. If survival required overthinking, stillness may feel unsafe. The person is not rejecting peace because peace is bad. They are rejecting it because their body does not yet recognize it as home. The disturbing part is that peace sabotage often looks like normal behavior. A person starts an argument when things are going well. They reopen old wounds when life becomes quiet. They return to people who hurt them because the silence of healing feels too strange. They overthink a safe situation until they create a problem that was not there. Chaos becomes familiar, and familiarity gets mistaken for truth. Peace sabotage loop also appears when people keep feeding the exact things they claim to want freedom from. They want rest, but keep entertaining drama. They want confidence, but keep comparing. They want healing, but keep revisiting what reopens the wound. Once you understand peace sabotage loop, you begin asking, am I protecting my peace or recreating the chaos I already know? That question can expose where your old survival pattern is fighting against the calm your soul has been asking for. Emotional independence. Emotional independence is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals the moment a person stops allowing other people's moods, attention, approval, silence, anger, or affection to control their inner world. It does not mean becoming cold, detached, or unable to love. It means your peace no longer rises and falls completely based on how someone else behaves. This becomes powerful because many people live emotionally owned without realizing it. One delayed reply can ruin their day. One critical comment can destroy their confidence. One person's distance can make them question their worth. One mood change can make them shrink, chase, explain, apologize, or panic. Their emotional state becomes a remote control in someone else's hand. The disturbing part is that emotional dependence can feel like love. A person may think, "I care so much," when they are actually emotionally enslaved by uncertainty. They may confuse anxiety with connection, obsession with loyalty, and constant emotional reaction with depth. But love should not make another person the manager of your nervous system. Emotional independence changes the way you move through relationships. You can care without collapsing. You can miss someone without begging. You can be disappointed without losing yourself. You can hear criticism without turning it into identity. You can let people have moods without making their emotions your assignment. Once you understand emotional independence, you begin asking, did this really take my peace, or did I hand my peace over? That question can return power immediately. The strongest version of you is not the one who feels nothing. It is the one who can feel deeply without becoming controlled by what others choose to do. Access scarcity. Access scarcity is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals that people often value what they cannot reach easily. Access is the ability to enter your time, attention, emotions, body, private life, energy, advice, forgiveness, or presence. When access is unlimited, some people stop treating it as valuable because they assume it will always be available. This becomes powerful because human behavior changes around limited access. People protect rare things, chase rare opportunities, and respect doors that do not open for everyone. But when someone can reach you at any time, drain you without consequence, interrupt your peace, return after disrespect, or receive your attention without effort, your presence can slowly lose weight in their mind. The disturbing part is that unlimited access can make people careless. They may delay replies because they assume you will wait. They may break promises because they assume you will forgive. They may disrespect your time because they assume you will adjust. They may give less because your availability has trained them that they do not need to earn closeness. Access scarcity is not about playing games or becoming cold. It is about teaching people that your presence has value. Not everyone deserves immediate replies, repeated chances, emotional availability, private information, or open doors after proving they cannot handle them with care. Once you understand access scarcity, you begin asking, have I made myself too available to people who have not earned that access? That question can expose where your openness has become self-neglect. Sometimes people do not value you less because you are less valuable. They value you less because your access has become too easy to misuse. No test principle. No test principle is one of the most revealing concepts because it shows that a person's true character often appears when they are told no. A no is not only a refusal, it is a test of respect, maturity, entitlement, patience, and emotional control. Anyone can seem kind when they are getting what they want. The deeper truth appears when access is denied. This becomes powerful because many people confuse agreement with goodness. Someone may seem loving, generous, calm, and understanding as long as you keep pleasing them. But the moment you set a limit, delay a response, protect your time, reject a request, or refuse to abandon yourself, their real relationship with your boundaries begins to show. The disturbing part is that some people do not react to your no as information. They react to it as an insult. They become cold, angry, dramatic, punishing, or manipulative because they never respected your choice. They only enjoyed your compliance. Their kindness depended on access. Their patience depended on control. Their respect depended on you remaining easy. No test principle also exposes relationships built on hidden entitlement. If someone believes your time, body, forgiveness, attention, money, emotional labor, or availability belongs to them, your no will feel like theft in their mind. They may accuse you of changing, being selfish, or not caring, when the real issue is that you stopped surrendering automatically. Once you understand no test principle, you begin asking, how does this person respond when they do not get what they want from me? That question can reveal more than months of pleasant conversation. A no does not destroy real respect. It exposes where respect was never real. Chase-build dynamic. Chase-build dynamic is one of the most powerful concepts because it reveals the difference between pursuing what keeps running and creating what can actually remain. Chasing is when your energy is spent trying to force attention, approval, love, validation, success, or opportunity to come toward you. Building is when your energy is spent becoming stronger, clearer, more valuable, more disciplined, and more rooted in yourself. This becomes powerful because what you chase often controls you. If you chase love, someone's distance can rule your emotions. If you chase approval, people's opinions become your prison. If you chase status, comparison becomes your daily punishment. If you chase attention, silence begins to feel like rejection. The more you chase, the more your peace depends on something outside your control. The disturbing part is that chasing can feel like effort, loyalty, ambition, or passion, when it may actually be desperation in motion. A person may keep proving themselves to someone who has already shown indifference. They may keep begging for respect instead of becoming someone who no longer stays where respect is absent. They may keep running after doors that close instead of building keys for better rooms. Building changes everything because it returns power to your hands. You build skills, you build standards, you build emotional stability, you build value, you build a life that does not collapse every time one person refuses to choose you. Once you understand chase-build dynamic, you begin asking, am I chasing what avoids me or building what strengthens me? That question can expose where your energy is being wasted. What runs from desperation may be drawn to self-respect. Intensity illusion. Intensity illusion is one of the most dangerous concepts because it reveals how easily people mistake strong emotion for deep meaning. Intensity is the feeling of being overwhelmed, obsessed, excited, anxious, pulled, consumed, or emotionally charged by something or someone. Because the feeling is powerful, the mind assumes it must be important, true, special, or meant to be. This becomes powerful because intensity can make unhealthy things feel sacred. A relationship filled with uncertainty may feel deeper than stable love because the highs and lows keep the nervous system activated. A person who gives mixed signals may feel unforgettable because the mind keeps chasing relief. A conflict may feel meaningful because it consumes your thoughts. But being emotionally activated does not always mean something is valuable. Sometimes it only means something is triggering an old wound. The disturbing part is that intensity can become addictive. People may confuse anxiety with passion, jealousy with love, chaos with chemistry, and obsession with connection. They may reject calm relationships because calmness feels too ordinary after emotional storms. They may keep returning to what hurts because the emotional spike feels more alive than peace. Intensity illusion also controls decisions. A person may choose what feels dramatic over what feels healthy. They may trust a powerful feeling more than consistent evidence. They may say, I have never felt this way before, without asking whether the feeling is healing them or destabilizing them. Once you understand intensity illusion, you begin asking, is this truly meaningful or is it only emotionally powerful? That question can separate depth from addiction. Not everything that shakes you is meant for you. Some things only feel deep because they disturb the parts of you that still need healing. Attention, love, confusion. Attention, love, confusion is one of the most painful concepts because it reveals how easily people can mistake being noticed for being truly cared for. Attention is when someone gives you focus, messages, compliments, interest, desire, time, or emotional reaction. Love is deeper. Love carries responsibility, consistency, respect, protection, honesty, patience, and care for your well-being. This becomes powerful because attention can feel intoxicating when a person has been emotionally starved. A message can feel like proof of value. A compliment can feel like safety. Someone checking on you can feel like connection. Someone desiring you can feel like love. But attention alone does not prove depth. Sometimes people give attention because they are bored, lonely, curious, possessive, attracted, or looking for access. The disturbing part is that attention can keep people attached to almost nothing. A person may stay emotionally loyal to someone who only appears when convenient. They may wait for small signs, overread short messages, and confuse inconsistent interest with hidden feelings. The little attention they receive becomes powerful because it briefly quiets the ache of feeling unwanted. Attention-love confusion also makes people vulnerable to manipulation. Someone can give just enough warmth to keep hope alive, then withdraw before real responsibility is required. They can make you feel chosen in moments while never choosing you in actions. The attention becomes a hook, and your hunger for love keeps you reaching for it. Once you understand attention-love confusion, you begin asking, is this person loving me, or only noticing me when it benefits them? That question can break emotional illusion. Real love does not only look at you, it shows up with care, consistency, and responsibility. Unsafe attachment. Unsafe attachment is one of the most painful concepts because it reveals how people can feel deeply connected to someone who does not make them feel emotionally safe. Attachment is not always proof of love, compatibility, or care. Sometimes it is the bond formed through fear, inconsistency, longing, uncertainty, history, chemistry, or the desperate hope that someone will finally become who you need them to be. This becomes powerful because unsafe attachment can feel stronger than healthy connection. A person may keep thinking about someone not because the bond is good, but because the relationship keeps their nervous system unsettled. They wait for replies, search for signs, replay conversations, excuse disrespect, and feel addicted to small moments of warmth. The uncertainty creates emotional hunger, and every small reward feels bigger than it should. The disturbing part is that unsafe attachment can make pain feel like depth. Someone may say, "I cannot let go," when what they really mean is, "My body has become trained to chase relief from this person." They may confuse anxiety with love, longing with loyalty, and emotional chaos with passion. The bond feels powerful because it keeps activating fear and hope at the same time. Unsafe attachment also makes people abandon themselves. They lower standards, ignore patterns, betray boundaries, and accept less than they need just to keep access to the person. Their peace becomes dependent on someone who keeps proving they cannot protect it. Once you understand unsafe attachment, you begin asking, do I feel loved here, or do I feel emotionally dependent on being chosen? That question can expose the difference between connection and captivity. Not every bond deserves to be protected. Some bonds only feel strong because they keep you unstable. Boundary standards. Boundary standards are one of the most powerful concepts because they reveal that boundaries are not just about saying no. They are about teaching life what kind of access your peace requires. A boundary is the line, but a standard is the reason the line exists. Without standards, boundaries become random reactions. With standards, boundaries become self-respect with structure. This becomes powerful because many people set boundaries only after they are hurt, drained, used, or disappointed. They wait until pain becomes unbearable before protecting themselves. But boundary standards work differently. They decide in advance what treatment is acceptable, what behavior has consequences, what access must be earned, and what patterns will no longer be entertained. The disturbing part is that weak boundary standards can invite repeated harm. If disrespect only receives explanations, it may continue. If betrayal only receives emotional speeches, it may return. If people can violate your peace and still enjoy the same closeness, your boundary has words but no weight. A standard is what makes the boundary real. Boundary standards also expose self-worth. Someone with strong standards does not need to hate people to limit them. They simply understand that love, friendship, family, or history does not cancel the need for respect. They know that access without accountability becomes danger. Once you understand boundary standards, you begin asking, what must be true for someone to remain close to me? That question can change your relationships. It separates emotional attachment from emotional safety. Boundaries are not meant to punish people. They are meant to protect the version of you that no longer wants to survive by tolerating less than peace.